start a study session on the Civic Center campus facilities conceptual design, and we will have our regular council meeting starting at 7 after that.
So Mayor Beckmeyer, at this time, we'll have Sam Bautista present the staff report and introduce the consultants on this item.
Great, thank you.
Clerk, are you going to discuss how to participate in this webinar?
Yes, so this webinar meeting is being held virtually with no physical location that open to the public. And the public can observe and participate in this study session and the following regular meeting via the Zoom link provided in the agenda. The link is the same for both the study session and the regular portion of the meeting, or by phone to the dial number as listed in the agenda. The meeting may also be observed live on local TV channel 26 or online at cityofpacifica.org/live stream. For this meeting, live verbal public comments may be made through participation by Zoom. For members of the public participating via Zoom, use the raise hand button to indicate that you wish to speak on an agenda item or during oral communications when the mayor calls upon that agenda item. For those participating by phone, use *9 or *9 to raise your hand to request to speak. The city clerk will call upon the speakers at the appropriate time, and you can unmute yourself to talk after you're called by screen name or the last 4 digits of your phone number if you're calling in. Please clearly state your full name for the record at the start of your comment. Written and email public comments will not be read during the meeting, but will be made part of the written record provided to council members. The format of the meeting may be altered or the meeting may be canceled if needed. Check the status of the meeting by visiting the city's website at cityofpacifica.org. And with that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Director Sam Bautista.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. Sam Bautista, your Deputy Director of Public Works. As you recall, the city hired Group 4 to assist the city in preparing the conceptual design for the Civic Center. In tonight's study session, Group 4 will discuss with us the different program options, site alternative options, site evaluation criteria, and design values of the Civic Center improvement project. At the end of the presentation, we recommend that Council direct staff and a consultant to continue evaluating program options with selected site alternatives and bring options back for discussion and direction at the February 8th Council meeting, provide input and analysis of site alternatives, and provide direction to staff and consultants on which site alternative to further develop for the basis of the conceptual design, and confirm that the proposed design values should be the basis for the development of the conceptual design. Since we have limited time, we will have a question and comment period after the presentation. Don Merkus of Group 4 will present the options and criteria to you. So I am going to turn the presentation to Ms. Merkus.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's my pleasure to be here tonight and give you the study session presentation for the Civic Center conceptual design. Tonight, we are going to go over just briefly the project background, look at the work schedule and work plan and give you an update on that, review with you the program options, talk a little bit about the preliminary historical findings for the buildings at the campus, and discuss site alternatives, site evaluation criteria, confirm design values with you, and look forward to a discussion and direction from council. Just want to check, make sure my audio is good for everybody. Yeah, great. So just on the project background, as you recall, October 26th, presentation was made regarding the water infiltration and the damage at both City Hall and the Parks, Beach and Planning building. and the findings with microbial growth and mold in parts of the building, and the recommendations made to address the water intrusion. And that really was the basis of the work that started in regards to looking at ways to improve the civic campus. Here's just a few pictures kind of depicting the level of damage that's currently in the buildings that needs to be addressed. And then moving ahead to the work plan for conceptual design and the schedule, we got off to a quick start in December. We've conducted 4 project management team meetings since we had our kickoff. We've interviewed all the department heads. We've started our technical meetings. And last week, we actually had a meeting with the neighbors. We had a focus group where 45 of the neighbors were invited. The purpose of the meeting was to get their input early on in terms of the site assessment and understand what current challenges they have with the Civic Center being a neighbor and things that they would like to see addressed and improved in the project that we're working on. Some of the comments we received were that the Civic Center right now is not very warm and inviting, and that should be a goal for the project, that the current buildings are unattractive, and there's a lot of deferred maintenance that should be addressed. They would like to see the project move forward. I think there was some concern that this is a great need for this project, and if there is a way the city could make sure to find funding for it. They have concerns that, as you know, the emergency generator is right on the property line with one of the residential neighbors. And so when the emergency generator is up and tested, which is done on a regular basis for maintenance, it's very noisy and smelly. Another impact on the neighbors is the lights from the Civic Center. As you know, most of the systems at the Civic Center, the building systems are outdated. And so there is a lot of light pollution that spills over from the Civic Center and is disruptive to the neighbors. So that is a summary of what we heard from the neighbors to take into consideration as we look at site alternatives. One of the things that we have been working on with city staff is to develop program options. And in summary of the current program is shown here in this table, and your current staff is shown here in the first 2 columns. As we're looking out to meet not just current needs, but future needs, we have included projected staff and then the projected square footage over here on the right. I would like to point out that the 2 spaces that are below this red line, the Public Works Engineering, staff of 7 people, and additional meeting space of about 2,400 square feet. That's not currently at the Civic Center, but these are program included in different variations of the program options that we would like to consider trying to fit into the various site alternatives. It is projected a very modest growth to meet future needs of less than 10% in terms of increase in staff. So the program options that have been developed with staff, the first one is program option A, and program option A is just looking at keeping all the existing departments at Civic Center and upgrading them for ADA, access, and functionality. And so that's a projected square footage need of 10,350 square feet. Program option B is looking at keeping the existing departments at City Hall at the Civic Center, but not including the Parks, Beach, and Recreation. Parks, Beach, and Recreation staff would be relocated to the community center. And in order to keep that square footage about the same as what it is now, Public Works Engineering would then be relocated to the Civic Center staff site. Program option C is looking at including all of the existing departments currently at Civic Center, but then also including Public Works Engineering. And so that is an increase to 11,570 square feet. And then the last one, program option D, includes existing departments at Civic Center, and then also includes additional large meeting room space. And so that's the largest program option here at 13,320 square feet. I would like to point out that the program options is something that can still be iterative even after tonight, depending which site alternative is selected or site alternatives. We will be able to manage these program options and bring them back to you so you can have additional input and refinement depending on the site alternative. This one is not on the critical path, but just wanted to give you an update and use it as we're looking at the different site alternatives. Our historical architect has been working, and thank you very much to your historical society. They've actually been a huge help in helping us develop these preliminary historical findings. To start with City Hall, the schoolhouse, which is the City Hall building, is listed as a local landmark. However, when it was converted, as you can see in the bottom middle picture, this was the original schoolhouse. When it was converted to the City Hall, there was significant changes in the late 1950s. The exterior cladding was changed, the windows were changed, and those character defining elements have been revised. And so one of the recommendations, if renovations are going to be able to be made at City Hall, is to look at restoring the exterior of the building to be more consistent with what the original school building was. The old police department, a little bit harder to find information on this facility. We have, if you look at the middle of the slide here on the bottom, you can see the old school building, and you can see the structure, which is now the old police department located here, and what is Parks Planning and Beach, or part of Parks Planning and Beach up here in the top left part of the site. That is the old post office. And the conclusion from the historical architect on the parks old police department, sorry, is that it has been altered so much that it does not retain any of its historical significance at this point. And so looking at major renovations or potentially demolition of this should not be a problem in regards to historical resource. And that's very similar findings as to the Planning, Parks and Beach and Recreation building. We're calling it the P&P building just to make it so that I don't stumble over all those words. But the P&P building, as I mentioned, had been the old post office with an additional commercial building built adjacent to it. And again, the findings from the historical architect are that it has been changed so significantly, it does not retain historical value to the city at this point. Moving on to the site alternatives, we have a summary matrix that we've prepared here for you, and we'll walk through each of these alternatives at a larger scale. But what we have done on the left side column is shown the program options and which ones fit in each of the site alternatives. And then we have our 4 site alternatives, 1 through 4 across the top here. So starting with additional program elements that also should be considered in additional to the space, and these are depicted on the site alternatives. And we just wanted to put them out there because as we look at evaluation criteria, these things become more important, and not just the functionality of what's in the building, but what else the civic campus can support. And that would be parking, the public plaza. And again, the public plaza was one of the things the neighbors thought would be important for the site, something that is lacking right now, as well as usable space outdoors for staff. Then moving on for description for site alternative 1. On all of these diagrams, we're showing Santa Maria Avenue at the top, Francisco Boulevard is to the right, and Salada Avenue is along the bottom. We're doing an axiometric view at the top of the slide, and then a plan view at the bottom of the slide. And so for site alternative 1, the old police department building is demolished, allowing for additional parking. and allowing for clearer site circulation, both for vehicles as well as pedestrians, and shown on the slide here. Site alternative 1 is just reusing the City Hall and the PNP building, and this will accommodate 10,570 square feet. Moving on to site alternative 2, and site alternative 2 potentially has 2 parts to it. And so it would be to retain all 3 buildings on the site, but potentially phase the improvements. The first phase of the improvements would be City Hall and the PNP building, thus leaving the old police department for future expansion or future improvements. The original phase of the project would accommodate 10,570 square feet. And if the old police department was able to be integrated into the project in a second phase or even in the first phase, that would increase the square footage to 13,670 square feet. As you're looking at the site, you can see that we can support less parking because the parking lot that we expanded in site alternative 1 still retains the old police department, and the circulation on the site is a little less straightforward as in site alternative 1 as well. Just because we have more buildings on the site and we still have a need for parking, there's a little bit less space for outdoor amenities. Moving on to site alternative 3, which is kind of a expansion of site alternative 1, if you will. So the old police department is demolished. We're then able then to improve site circulation for parking. And this option also includes an expansion of the PNP building. Exactly how much the expansion is really yet to be determined. We can potentially get up to 14,470 square feet, which is more than any of our program options currently outline. But you can see potentially site access to Francisco Boulevard could be retained to the parking lot for vehicles. And exactly how we expand that PNP building is yet to be determined. So that is site alternative 3. And then site alternative 4 was an option I think that was mentioned at the last council meeting, and that was to look at improving the old police department and looking at improving the planning and PNP building and do an expansion to that, and then pretty much land bank or put City Hall, building the existing City Hall, kind of on reserve to look for a future use or another use for that. If we're able to expand the PNP building and renovate the old police department for the City Hall uses, the square footages that we can get for that is 10,570 square feet. So not quite accommodating some of the larger program options, but definitely accommodating the smaller program options. One of the things that we did want to point out in this program option or the site alternative is that if City Hall is left for another use, that we will still need to provide parking for that. And so that larger program increases the parking demand by about 20 spaces. And that is not something that we can currently meet on the existing Civic Center site and the adjacent city parking lot that's across from Salata Avenue. So all of the other 3 site alternatives, we are able to accommodate the parking demand, but for site alternative 4, we are not able to accommodate that additional need for parking for City Hall on the site. So just looking at a summary of the site alternatives, we have the total square footages that can be accommodated, which each of the site alternatives, again, option site alternative 1 is 10,570 square feet. Alternative 2, 13,370 square feet. Alternative 3, 14,470 square feet, and alternative 4, 10,570 square feet. And how those look in terms of being able to accommodate the program. We have program option A and B fitting on site alternative 1. And then for site alternative 2 and 3, we're able to accommodate all of the programs. And site alternative 4, again, is only able to accommodate program option A and B. The consultants and staff recommendation is to continue to explore site alternative 1 and 3, which are really kind of derivations of each other, just because they are able to accommodate the maximum program size. When we looked at developing the recommendations, some of the criteria that we looked at was prerequisites criteria such as functionality, sustainability, flexibility, schedule and phasing, alignment with planning. Then we have the visibility, accessibility, placemaking, synergy, cultural heritage, cost, and economic impact. These criteria were edited and refined with staff's input. And just talking a little bit about each of them, prerequisites, most important, I think, is for this project is the functionality. I mean, currently there's lots of challenges to the functionality of the buildings. And so with the renovation of the Civic Center, definitely want to improve the functionality and meet that efficient requirements for staff, as well as good customer service for your community. Sustainability, both environmental and operationally, is important. And then the operations, really looking at being able to improve operations and provide that efficiency. One of the things that was also mentioned in this in terms of operation is be able to attract and retain quality staff. Schedule and phasing, we've talked a little bit about the options and the site alternatives and how they potentially could be phased and scheduled. And this is definitely something we will be developing more in the next phase as we're looking at refining the alternatives that are selected. And then alignment with planning. Does it demonstrate, educate the best development practices, and are we able to make sure we're aligned with environmental goals? Visibility and accessibility are additional considerations, and this is something that definitely is a challenge right now at the existing Civic campus, and the goals for any of the improvements would be to improve visibility, accessibility. And then placemaking, really important to be able to leverage some of the work that you've done off Palmetto Avenue and to expand that and to really create a sense of community. Again, synergy is very important, opportunity to build off the improvements along Francisco and the other commercial facilities and buildings that have been developed there. Cultural and heritage, this was one that we felt was important on the site, is the historical museum and the Little Brown Church. You have the city hall, and really be able to reflect the cultural and heritage of Pacifica. And then economic impact is really the opportunity for this building to be a catalyst, to really help improve both other public projects as well as private sector and commercial projects. So for your discussion tonight, we have developed a matrix of evaluation criteria, which is part of the recommendation from staff and the consultant to recommend site alternative 1 and 3. As we looked at the criteria and we ranked each of the alternatives, differentiators really became the opportunity for development of outdoor space. And when we looked at site alternative 2 and 4, where all of the buildings remain, specifically the police department, there was just less opportunity to do that. Other differentiators were in terms of the access to the site, and just the kind of circuitous way that you have to maneuver through the site right now. The opportunity to improve that was seen as important. And then also the capacity, really looking for the opportunity to leverage the improvements to maximize the impact and provide the most flexibility and functional space for the city. So just quickly wanted to introduce the design values that are being recommended for the site. The basis for the design values was a lot of the community outreach that happened for the library project, and really taking those design values for the recommendations. As you know, the library project just down the street, and these were seen as important both to the community as well as the city council, and giving input and the design values for those projects seemed appropriate to go ahead and leverage that work and kind of refine it and customize it for this project. And so warm and inviting was important, and seems to be comments that was almost exactly quoted by one of the neighbors in our focus group. Coastal design, and this really means to be able to design durable, maintainable buildings that are going to stand up to the weather and the climate that you have at this site. Small town, really trying to reflect kind of that old town part of Pacifica, and look at the scale and make sure the buildings reflect that. And then modern California. And here's some images that kind of reflect that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's highly contemporary or anything like that, but really just kind of celebrating our climate, engaging indoors and outdoors, and blurring that line. The other value that the library did not have, which we think is appropriate based on the context of the site, is the historical, looking at rehabilitating the old schoolhouse, which is now your city hall. And as we're doing improvements to the P&P building or the old PD building, looking at developing complementary or potentially slightly contrasting. Looking at recreating or mimicking historical buildings is not seen as a desirable direction in terms of historical renovation. So you really want to set off that historical building by either complementing or contrasting. And so with that, complete our presentation, and would love to hear comments, answer questions, and we can jump back and forth to any slide as you prefer.
Thank you, Dawn. Are there questions from council at this point? I can't see anyone. Let me just fix my screen. Sorry. There. Yes. Sorry, Mike. I couldn't see you.
No, it was Sue had her hand up, so.
Sue did first? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Dawn, did you guys take into consideration the parking lot across the street?
Yes, we did. Yes, yeah. So the Salada parking lot, as well as the parking on site, is what we are using for the parking calculations. And we've had 2 technical meetings on that with city staff. So absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Look, I went back and I looked at the reference for the meeting we had. Was it? I think it was October. And do you have any sort of chart or anything that says these 4 options with the budget that was discussed then? Okay, because they were described as minimal, and stuff. And which of these fits that same criteria to give us an idea for budget?
Yes, so for budget, very good question, Councilmember O'Neill. So budget, what we're looking at is really using what was presented in October as kind of the top level constraint for the project. And so whichever alternative you direct us to move forward with, we are going to work towards coming up with a menu approach that comes and presents to varying levels of renovation for, say, the City Hall building or the PNP building. And so you will be able to look through and do an analysis in terms of which one you want to move forward with depending on the level of improvements. We did hear that you would like to make all of the buildings accessible and City Hall included. And so we thought by using the minimalist budget that was established in October and then being able to come back with a menu approach on different elements, you would be able to make the prioritization of what is the most important for you to get within that budget.
Okay,
So all of the
so,
alternatives would be designed to that minimalist budget. And within that, we would be able to give you a menu of options that you could then look at to decide which ones you would want to include for the budget.
okay, so then I'm looking at the report from October. So you're saying the minimalist budget is $6.7 million. So what you're saying is you would come back to us and give us a menu of what items to pick on the, I'm trying to get back, sorry, to pick, right? And I'm trying to get back to well, let me go back to the staff report for tonight. I don't really recall any discussion about bringing engineering and stuff back to uh, the Civic Center in October. And so basically the minimalist would be all existing departments without public works and engineering there. Or you're proposing exchanging parks, beach and recreation out and bringing in public works and engineering now, correct?
So in terms of the program options, I believe we did discuss in October. I know we did discuss in the feasibility study the option of relocating the Parks, Beach, and Recreation to the community center and having Public Works Engineering move into the Civic Center because of their need to do closer communications and work with planning and building. And so it's just Public Works Engineering that is being proposed as one of the program options to come to Civic Center. In terms of the program options right now, we actually that's not on the critical path for the direction. We would be able to see how much, if say you chose site alternative 3, we have enough square footage if we did the maximum expansion of the PNP building for you to be able to decide, if you wanted public works engineering here, or if you wanted a larger community room, or which option in terms of the program you wanted to apply to that. And so, we could still minimize it and have it be that lowest program option A and have it be, part of site alternative 1 or site alternative 3. That really isn't the critical decision uh, point. That's not on the critical path right now.
Okay. Okay. Um, and then, I'm sorry, I can't seem to get back to Zoom to you, so I'm going off the staff report here. The City Hall, is one of your criteria that City Hall would be refurbished and vacant, or is it going to be used in every scenario?
So site alternative 4 is the one where would not be improved and not be used to meet the need for the city departments.
But
So
that would be keeping the PD building, correct?
yes, exactly. the
mean,
PD and the PNP building.
I mean, I've been in the PD building, and I mean, that's just basically a cinder block bunker. I mean, there's like minimal windows, et cetera, in there, and it doesn't really seem to, it's not a place I'd want to spend 8 hours in as an employee. You know what I mean? I mean, granted, even if you fixed it up, it just seems like it's not, wouldn't be that good. Have we ever given any thought at all? Because I kind of balk at the $6.7 million. And have we given any thought to looking? Because I sent an email, and granted, you know, this was just a cold email, so it's very beginning, but we could actually do all, you know, the site alternative two, all of it, if we went to like portable classrooms for like $3 million by the figure they sent me. Now, granted, that isn't, you know, there's other criteria we're going to go in, because I'm nervous we're going to go into one of these buildings, we find asbestos, and all of a sudden the remodeling goes up quite a bit. I mean, when the school district remodeled all their buildings, that's what happened. And, you know, so then the cost just goes up further. And to me, you're still going to be stuck with buildings that, you know, were approaching 80, 90 years old. And while if you did go with like and you can configure the portable classrooms so that they look like, or modular classrooms to whatever configuration you want. And if you put five, I think I figured out it was either 5 or 6, you could do it for $3 million, and you'd have virtually all new ADA accessible buildings, etc. And I just kind of wanted to throw that out as an alternative I'd like to see explored, and put in the portable classrooms over in the Thai parking lot that the city owns.
I think we can definitely do that as an exercise, a cost model exercise. We have done modulars for temporary facilities. I think we would, you know, just advise you to be very careful to compare apples to apples. The $6.7 million budget included all of the soft cost as well as additional FF&E. The
And
budget
what's
for that for the
FF&E is what?
uh,
FF&E is what?
furniture and fixtures. My apologies. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the other point I would like to make, that the budget for that also included for the PNP building was a complete building renovation, a major renovation, which is basically comparable to new construction. And so just the ability to design the improvements to that building to be able to weather the climate and to be appropriate for the site. You know, typically for public facilities, we're looking at needing them to last 40 to 50 years. And so the renovation of the PNP building in that budget that was presented in October was of equivalence to that. And your modulars, as you know from your school buildings, you know, are lifespan doesn't quite make that. And so if we were to include that in the next phase as a comparable for you in terms of the cost model, we'd be happy to do that, and we can do that. And I'd just like to point out, if you take up the parking lot at Salada, with modulars, we're still going to either need to demolish something on the Civic Center site to accommodate additional parking. And so what the balance of that is, and what, you know, is it the PNP building that comes out and then kind of leaves you this hole along Francisco Avenue where you kind of want a building just because of the street frontage there? And can we get enough parking with that without demolishing City Hall as well? Those are things we could actually look at for you, Mike.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have no problems, you know, because if we're saving $3 to $4 million, that you know, when we tore down those apartment buildings up on Esplanade, that was $200,000. So I'm sure, you know, it would be comparable to tear down the the City Hall and the PBNR building, and possibly even the police building also for $4 million, you know, and then repave it, and we would have that, entire site. And I'm assuming all those individual storage sheds, are you planning on that are that are to the west side of City Hall? Those would all be
Yes.
torn out, I assume, right? And gone?
Yes, one of them is your emergency generator is located over there. And so looking at coming up with an enclosure to help with the noise attenuation and the exhaust, that definitely is something that we'll be analyzing as well.
Okay.
Can I go? I'm gonna go.
Other questions? I can't see Mary. If Mary, do you have your hand up?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, go.
Dawn, I want to thank you for being flexible to consider Councilmember O'Neill's idea. Like your flexibility just in your response, I really appreciate that. And so I would support that. I have two little questions, if you don't mind. So you said you did focus groups and that you invited 45 people. How many people attended?
I believe there was 4 people on the call, the Zoom call that we did. And then there was an additional, and Sam can confirm this, there was additional email that he received that reflected in the comments. So, well, it duplicated the concern about the generator and the noise. So
Okay.
total of 5 neighbors, I believe, gave us input. And again, they were all notified, and hopefully, I don't know if we have any in the audience tonight either. They were encouraged to attend tonight.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm an advocate for as much community input as we can possibly get. So it would be good to have more of that. And then does the Historical Society agree with the findings of the historical architect? You know?
That actually came up today for their to actually do a focus group after tonight, to actually not just because they're on the site as a user, but I believe the majority of the information for the findings of the historical architect did come from the Historical Society. They are not necessarily of the same expertise in terms of discriminating what is a historical resource in per CEQA and the historical resource code. But I would hesitate to speak for them, but it seems the recommendation is very consistent with the available information.
That's wonderful. Thank you for including them. And a focus group sounds great with them too. So thanks. I'm done. Thanks, Mayor.
Tiger?
My question was because when I'm looking at site alternatives 1 and 3 with the police building gone, what's going to be there is parking. And when I was looking at the site earlier, it occurred to me there might be enough room there to put a proper parking building, which might alleviate some of the parking concerns in the neighborhood as a whole. So I was just wondering if it might be feasible to put something of a parking structure there. Just asking if it's feasible at all.
I would say for money, almost anything is feasible, right? So the size of the parking lot that is left, like as you look at site alternative 3, you know, what we would have to do is ramp up and ramp down, and speed ramps, they take up quite a bit of room. I would say right now it potentially could be feasible, but the efficiency and the cost would be extremely high and probably prohibitive in my analysis. And we do underground parking all the time under buildings as well as structures, but the size of what we have to work with here is just very limiting, and thus would be very costly.
I'm wondering if there might be some sort of nexus with other projects that could bring money in. And I'm starting to pull from left field, so I'm going out of my depth, but I'm wondering if there might be money available somewhere else. And so the nature of my question is much more, is there enough space that if we were to put parking there, it would be a substantial enough amount of parking that it would be helpful to the neighborhood, and then we could see if the money was available at that point. It's kind of where I'm coming from.
Gotcha. And you know what I would suggest that we could look at that again as a cost option for you, just kind of developing that cost model, but it's probably more realistic to look at the Salata lot for that, where we have a little bit more room.
Is there more room at the Salata lot? Because I just
There
at a
is.
glance and okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking up time, which we don't have a lot of. I just had 2 quick questions, and I wanted to second the request for having a cost, an apples to apples cost comparison with the notion of using modular buildings and what that would look like, because I think we really need to explore all options when we're thinking about civic buildings. In terms of the budget. So the issues you mentioned about emergency generator and light noise, if you will, for the neighborhood, I'm assuming those are, you had mentioned looking at a way to enclose the generator or create some buffers for that.
Yeah, so they do have generator enclosures that provide sound attenuation, so kind of muffles the sound of the generator, if you will, so that it won't be so disruptive to the neighbors. A little bit of that sound wall would also help. You know, it's just directly on that property line there, and no sound attenuation has been applied to that.
Okay, so those will be factored into all of the plans, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question really has to do with the historical building of the city hall. And I understand that the historical architect is reviewing it. I'm concerned, I echo Councilmember O'Neill's concerns about asbestos potentially cropping up. But I want to go back to the ADA issue that we mentioned in October. Is the plan for use of that building in all the plans except site alternative 4 to include elevators and make that building completely accessible?
So based on discussions with the historical architect, the elevation that is facing Santa Maria Avenue is the character defining elevation. And so we are doing further analysis on the structure of that building, but our initial response is that the stair that is on the parking lot side of the building, on the south side of the building, is a good option for demolition and to actually construct a new stair tower elevator vertical circulation where that is located so that we can actually access all levels of the city hall and have it be on the parking lot side where most of the people coming into the building would come from as well. And so that definitely is the options that we would look at developing for you, including the cost in the next phase, if site alternative 1 and 3 are your preferred site alternatives, in addition to the modular option that you would like us to cost out as well.
Okay, thank you. We have a few minutes. I'd like to open it up for public comment to see how much time we're going to need. And I'm just checking to see hands raised, if any. I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Hey, Mayor Beckmeyer,
There.
I do see one public hand raised, and if I could request to Ms. Merckx to take down the screen share so I can share the timer, please. Okay, for public comments, I will start with Christine Bowles. And give me just one moment to allow you to speak. Oh, Okay, Ms. Bowles, are you able to unmute yourself? All right, I'm just trying to get, I don't see hands raised anymore.
Hmm.
Hand was lowered. I'm not sure if that means that she's not wanting to speak anymore.
Can I just ask a question while Sarah's trying to figure that out?
Mhm.
Is it, do they have modular buildings or modular classrooms or whatever that are 2 stories tall? Because that's something, I mean, I kind of like the idea of the outdoor plaza and, you know, all that stuff. And I'm just wondering if we have a 2-story one, we really could do like some sort of community plaza. And if they have that option and how much it would be and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah, I think what we can run for you on that cost model is definitely what you were referring to as modular classrooms. But another option that we've been working with another city with is pre-engineered or prefabricated. And so that gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of not necessarily looking like the modulars that you see on the school campuses. And we can bring back costs for those too. So we can bring back kind of different options for you in the pre-engineered, prefabricated slash modulars.
And I'd like to request on that, please, Dawn, if you could, I know it's probably challenging, but to the degree that you can, if you would bring back as much information regarding greenhouse gases, sustainability, energy use, et cetera. I know there was a slide in this presentation where you had looked at those things, but we'd want to be looking at those for the other options as well.
I think it'd be good to look at a solar battery instead of the generator, or first we use a solar battery, and if we're 2 or 3 days, then maybe we have to opt for the generator, being we already have it, type of thing.
I think the technology hasn't caught up quite with you yet, Mike, on that, but we can do
Okay.
a summary slide for you. We've been investigating that for other projects as well, and the batteries are not quite there yet for us. So.
Okay, yeah.
Mayor
For
Bethleyer,
commercial.
I do see Christine Bowles from the public has her hand raised again and wishes to
Okay, great. And I was going to suggest if we're having technical difficulties, maybe we could give her the phone number to call in if that is an alternative.
Yeah, let's try again this time and see if we can. I'm going to go ahead and press allow to speak and see if she can unmute.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm here. Thank you. I was having trouble with my audio on my other device. I just wanted to ask, I'm not quite clear on how tall we're looking at for the buildings and the remodels. I know the City Council is just approving a height raise in the Sharp Park area. And for efficiencies, it might be helpful to look at one new building with a more compressed footprint if you're having to put in elevators anyway. So I'm thinking maybe the side of the planning department building. I just know from experience it costs a lot of money to remodel these buildings that are of this age, and in the end there's not very much left to save. So you might actually be in better shape to think about tearing down one of the buildings and starting over than doing a remodel, and in which case you have more flexibility for replanning. In terms of Commissioner Big Stick's question about a parking garage, I haven't really thought about whether a taller garage structure might be appropriate there. But again, if I think it's in option 3, if the planning department building was more compact, you could potentially have a ramp coming up from Francisco with the up and down, kind of in the middle of the site. So that it would leave most of the parking intact where you have it now and allow for multiple levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other public comments? Any other people attending that would like to make a comment? Okay, not seeing any. And City Clerk Coffee, you'll let me know if I missed that, please. Bringing it back to council, I want to make sure we have really clear direction for staff and for our wonderful consultant, Don Merkus. So we're going to ask for the modular option, which potentially could include a 2-story option or multiple story option, yes. We're asking for more information about parking and the possibility of higher density parking with a lot or ramps or something. With regard to the options of bringing public works engineering or not, is there anything council wants to specifically ask for around that?
So
Not seeing.
all the trucks would be left where they are, but Public Works employees would come to the one site. If we had one site, would that cut down on things like reception, filing, copy maker, copy machines, etc.? Because everybody would be basically in one area.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that the building on the Ed Cordero building would still need a lot of that same stuff because there's public access there. Basically, you're saying the blue collar workers would go to Ed Cordero's and the white collars, engineering and stuff would go to City Hall. But I would think that they'd still need to have, because they got a lot of file cabinets there at Public Works at the Ed Cordero site, the Oceana site. There's a lot of files in that one room.
Have you considered those aspects, Dawn, at this level of conceptual design? Has that been looked at yet?
I'm looking
Filing
at Kevin
space.
because he came off camera. So I wonder if he doesn't want to jump in here and talk about the engineering.
I think that when we come back to the council with further information, we can really talk more about the pros and cons about, you know, whether PB&R is here at the community center and Public Works Engineering Administration is here or stays at the courtyard. You know, it's not essential to the decision about the site recommendation at this point.
Okay.
You know, and we've been hashing around ideas about how to create a better public service counter one-stop center. But also there's a great benefit to having PB&R administration centralized geographically in the city as well. So, you know, there's more to discuss about that when we get, I think, a little further down the line.
That was basically what I was talking about. One stop and you could go to all services in the same area.
I do think we should, from the historical societies, they have mentioned many times they would like to see that railroad car next to their museum. So I think that should be counted, whatever master plan we come up with the whole civic center thing, that's something that they want to do. And I don't know if we want to include that or not.
I think it has to be looked at, Mike. I agree with you. It's got to be on the list. We're going to spend the time and effort to look at this. We need to look at all of the options and all of the possibilities and take the time to do a thorough analysis of this, because we've got these legacy historic buildings and we need to make sure that what we decide on is going to be functional for the future.
Mayor Beckmeyer, I'm just going to do a time check.
Oh, thank you.
7 o'clock.
Yes.
And Kevin, did you get enough direction from us?
I guess I'd just like to hear confirmation that the council is supporting our recommendation to look at the alternatives 1 and 3 with an additional information that we'll bring back as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great. All right. With that, we will close this.
Thank you,
session.
Don.
Thank you very much.
And Sam too.
Thank you. Everyone.
Thank you,
Benjamin.
everybody. Okay, moving on. I'm going to call the regular meeting to order. Assuming PCT is ready for us. Yes?
Yes, PCTV is rolling, Mayor Beckmeyer.
Okay, great. So we're calling the meeting to order. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, at 7 o'clock, according to my clock. We've just completed the study session and that will be brought back. Today is, January 11th, 2021, and we're starting the meeting at 7 p.m. And could we have a roll call, please? City Clerk Coffey.
Yes. Councilmember Big Stick.
Present.
Councilmember Vadalas.
Here.
Councilmember Beer. I'm sorry, Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Here.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Here. And I will do the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I did want to make a brief announcement that tonight's meeting will be adjourned in memory of a long-term city employee, Patricia Pat Phelan, from our Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Department, and we will have comment on that at the end of the meeting. In addition, we acknowledge the passing of two very long-term Pacifica residents and contributors to the life of Pacifica, Pilar Schneider and Marv Morganti. And we have been seeing a lot of information about the passing of a very dear, much beloved commercial operator in town from Champus Pies as well. And that is, those are all very hard things for our community. So I just wanted to make that acknowledgement. All right. So City Clerk Coffey, we have our special presentation. Do you want to do that first? And then we will reiterate the how to participate in the meeting instructions.
I'll go ahead and do the reminder about the meeting format now for those present. And then as I'm pulling over our participant for the proclamation.
Okay.
So as a reminder, this meeting is being held by video conference with no physical location open to the public. The public can observe and participate in the meeting via the Zoom link provided in the agenda or the dial-in number and webinar ID provided in the agenda. The meeting can also be observed live on local TV channel 26 or online at cityofpacifica.org/live stream. For this meeting, live verbal public comments may be made through participation by Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, use the raise hand feature when you wish to speak on an agenda item or during oral communications when the mayor calls upon that item. For those that are dialing in, use *9 or *9 to raise your hand to request to speak. The city clerk will call upon speakers at the appropriate time and allow you to unmute yourself by calling on you by screen name or the last 4 digits of your phone number if you're dialing in. Please clearly state your full name for the record at the start of your comment. The meeting format may be altered or the meeting may be canceled if needed. You can check the status of the meeting by visiting the city's website at cityofpacifica.org for updates. And then with that, we have our proclamation recipient available as a panelist, and I will bring up the proclamation.
You're on mute, Sue.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is a proclamation of the City of Pacifica in recognition of Manuel Ferrer. Whereas Manuel Ferrer is retiring from a distinguished public service career with the City of Pacifica, serving most recently as systems specialist with the Information Technology Division under the Administrative Services Department. And whereas Manuel Ferrer has served over 22 years with the Information Technology Division, beginning with his appointment to Management Information Systems Technician in April 1998 and promoted to the position of Systems Specialist in 2004. And whereas Manuel's hard work and persistence are responsible for changing the Information Technology Division into what it is today, a modern and customer service oriented division to meet the city's growing demand and need for technology. And whereas Manuel has demonstrated dedication to the city, tirelessly working behind the scenes to protect it from cyber threats, maintaining our critical systems and servers, ensuring the city email and website stay up, and engaging in preventive actions to minimize disruption to city services. And whereas Manuel has become a highly respected specialist in his field, keeping up to date on technology and making recommendations and proposing ideas for technological improvements and efficiencies. And whereas Manuel has demonstrated time and time again his expertise in being a problem solver, a technical teacher, and a valued member of the city's Information Technology Division. And whereas Manuel has fulfilled an important role in the continuing evolution of the Information Technology Division, including volunteering for many years as the city staff event photographer, capturing many special moments throughout the city's history. And whereas Manuel's positive impact on city staff and the community will be remembered and felt for many years to come. Now, therefore, I, Sue Beckmeyer, Mayor of the City of Pacifica, on behalf of all of its citizens, do hereby extend our grateful thanks and appreciation to Manuel Ferrer for over 22 years of dedicated and distinguished service to the City of Pacifica, and wish him all the best in his future endeavors. Done this 11th day of January, 2021. And I would like to invite anyone who would like to have comment. I think, oh, hi, there you are, Manuel. I just saw your face. Hi. Sarah, I'm not sure. My screen is kind of small. I see Tommy there. Should we start there?
If you'd like to start with Tommy to say a few words, yes, we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. I'm Tommy, your Information Technology Manager. I just want to make some brief comments. So, Manuel, 22 years is quite an achievement. I've been fortunate to be able to supervise Manuel and work with him for the past 2 years. In my short time here, Manuel has proven to be an invaluable resource and has personally helped me and IT Vision dramatically change for the better. I've relied heavily on him for his many years of experience and wisdom, and I'm just very thankful for the opportunity to have worked with him. And Manuel has played a big role in keeping everything on the IT side running smoothly and has prevented and or averted many issues and cyber threats that have come up that most people may not even realize. It's a lot of it's behind the scenes, and frankly, he's also hands down one of the most friendliest and hardworking individuals that I know. I just want to say in closing that, Manuel, you have some really big shoes to fill in. The city will never be the same without you. Congratulations again, and I wish you all the best. And thank you again for all your years of service.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill.
I'd like to say, sorry, I never really met you, Manuel, because I've never had to use the IT things, but I got to say, is you are IT's backbone of the city. I mean, it keeps all the stuff working and response for our outreach to the citizens, the emails and connect with Pacifica and all that. And I mean, you've been there to get it all started in the last 5 years. So I wanted to say thank you for that, and the enhancements you've put in there, because I know we're starting to get. We just built that portal in planning for looking at projects. I don't know if you were involved in that, but we're trying to do more and more to outreach to the public. So thank you for your 22 years of labor for the citizens of the city. Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you.
Councilmember Big Stick.
Go first because I probably know you the least, although Councilmember O'Neill helped me in that regard. So thank you. And I want to echo everything Councilmember O'Neill said. And as somebody who does not know you well, nonetheless, you've been taking care of our city for over 22 years, and that's extraordinarily impressive. And thank you for doing that. And I'm going to bow out now for somebody who hopefully knows you a bit better. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do see there is a hand raised as well. Should we go to that, include that as well right now? Ed Vandehee.
Okay, give me just one moment while I bring the timer up and allow Mr. Ed Vandehee, you should be able to unmute and begin speaking.
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Ed Vandehee, and I'm the retired MIS manager for the City of Pacifica. I had the pleasure of working with Manuel Ferrer for nearly 2 decades. I'm happy that Manuel has entered his new and exciting phase in his life. Retirement is always best when you're young and healthy and you have the time to enjoy it. When I hired Manuel many years ago, I had one request of my new recruit: make me look good. Manuel agreed, and he held up the promise. As his supervisor, I stood proud when he was awarded the Employee of the Year award for the Finance Department and the Employee of the Year award for the entire city. Manuel's job was not always a fun one. Sometimes mining through mountains of surplus property, getting called out to work on a server problem in the middle of a 3-day weekend, having to use his photography skills to get that perfect shot of Pacifica at dusk so we might be able to use it for the budget document, or having to be accessible to me by text message while on vacation overseas, just in case. Manuel was very dependable and always there when I needed him. I could always trust him to do the right thing, solve the problem, and complete the job. He always handled himself with honesty and integrity. I miss working with my friend, and I wish him well in his retirement. Thanks for everything, Manuel. You've done me proud yet again. Be happy to know that the best part of your life is yet ahead of you. Your future looks pretty bright. You should wear shades. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I would like to say a special thank you of my own, because Manuel saved me more than once with my iPad that I wasn't too used to using, and I didn't know enough about how to log into the email, and there were a lot of I was reassured by having help, and thank you very much. And if that small experience is anything like what everyone else in the city has experienced, I know that you've served well. So thank you very much for all of those years of dedicated service.
Thank you.
Councilmember Batterlaws.
I loved what Ed just said. It was like the perfect outgoing speech ever. Wear shades, because your future's bright. And I just want to thank you. I mean, the employees who've been here for so long, 22 years is such a long time to stay in one place. So I thank you so much for being here and helping all of us all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yeah, Manuel, thank you so much. It was so nice to have Ed come back and say all those beautiful things about you. What a nice way to go out. And I really thank you for all of your years of service. It's hard to be behind the scenes and we don't get to know all the people behind the scenes, you know, but we wish you the very best. Thank you for all you have done.
Thank you, Mary.
And did you have any comments, Manuel?
Yeah, I would like to say a few words. Originally, I was hired as a temporary part-time MIS technician in 1998, and it became permanent full-time a few months later. At that time, not all employees had computer on their desks, and if they had computers, there was no access to the internet and no city email. In the year 2000, working alongside the then MIS manager, Ed Vandehei, we created a computer network interconnecting the majority of the city offices and gave them internet access. We subsequently set up the first City of Pacifica email server. To my surprise, a few months later, after completing those projects, I was named the City of Pacifica Employee of the Year, just like what Ed said. Since then, a number of IT projects came up, notably upgrade of the outdated city website to make it more engaging to the residents and the rollout of the financial software. In 2018, IT manager Ed retired and the department was without a manager for over a year until the current IT manager, Tommy Yu, was hired. In the last 3 years, the IT department tackled some projects, not the least of which is the upgrade of the city antiquated computer network to a faster and more robust network. I've been contemplating retiring in the last few years, and now that I see that the department is in good hands under Tommy, this is the perfect time to do it. In my 22 years as an employee, I have good memories to treasure and also made some good friends while working for the city. And now it's time to flip the page to the next chapter of the book of my life. Thank you, City of Pacifica, for giving me the chance to serve you. You will always have a place in my heart. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we have our consent calendar items, but before we go to that, I did want to ask, I'm just checking to make sure that I'm on track here. Thank you for bearing with me. Yeah, okay. I did want to just make a statement about the events of last week in the nation's capital, and to say that that is heavy on my heart, that witnessing what happened in Washington, and as a public servant and as someone who took an oath to defend the Constitution, I would like to just say that it is for me a very serious matter, and having tonight's meeting, proceed as it does, I'm thinking about, the oath that I took and the oath that we all take as public servants. And those thoughts are, while we may not make a lot of public statements about it, I can certainly say for myself that it's something that I take very much to heart. And it's very, very much in the front of my mind, especially tonight, but really all the time in serving the citizens of Pacifica. I'm sure other council members will have comments to make as well during our council communications, but I just wanted to frame, before we just launch into our business tonight, I really felt it was important to say something about that and to acknowledge what I'm sure many people are thinking as we proceed through this meeting. So with that, we have our consent calendar, and I wanted to see if there are any council members or members of the public who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar. Councilmember Big Stick.
Thank you. I don't know if we need to pull it, but I have just a brief comment about number 7.
then we do need to pull it, as I understand it. Our city clerk can clarify for me, or our city attorney.
Actually, if it's just a statement or a question for clarification on the item, we do not need to pull it. If the council member wants to discuss the item, then it should be pulled. But if it's just a question or a statement, that can just be made.
Just a
And
brief
that should be
comment.
made before we vote, yes? I mean,
Yes.
before we do our public comment and all of that?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to go ahead and make that clarification question now, Councilmember Big Stick, on item number 7?
Yeah, certainly. And as I was reading through our responses to the grand jury report on second units, I was looking at our response to number 5. And I'll read the full sentence I was looking at and then give you my comment. And it's talking about, well, the sentence in question was, thus cost can be a barrier for homeowners considering certain types of second units, although the city is unaware of examples of lenders in the region being unwilling to finance second unit projects. And at first I thought that maybe it was an argument with the initial statement. And then I had a brief conversation with city attorney actually, and came to understand we just haven't done the research to be aware of any instances. And the reason I brought it up and asked the question was because early on in my time as a planning commissioner, I was at an orientation meeting in which a representative from Housing Trust of Silicon Valley was there to talk about some of the financial barriers to folks building ADUs. And so I thought that this might be a good time to just mention that there is this organization, Housing Trust of Silicon Valley, and their website is housingtrustsv.org. And if you are looking into building an ADU, they might be able to, they're a resource to help you figure out how to finance it if you're initially having trouble finding the loan through the banks. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there other, any council members who wish to pull an item, or any member of the public? And seeing none.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as stated.
Second.
Right. Clerk Coffee,
Motion
we
to
have a,
approve the consent calendar by O'Neill and seconded by Butterlaws. I'll now read the roll call for votes. Councilmember Big Stick,
Yes.
Councilmember Butterlaws,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer,
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer,
yes.
and the full consent calendar passes unanimously.
Okay. All right, then we will move into oral communications, and I'll read the statement. This portion of the agenda is available for the public to address the city council on any issue that is not on the agenda. Any person wishing to address the council shall be recognized by the mayor during oral communications, provided, however, that during the oral communications portion of the agenda, only items not on the agenda for that meeting may be addressed. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. Council members shall not enter into debate with speakers under oral communications. A maximum time of 3 minutes will be allowed for any speaker. And I would ask that you please refrain from making impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks, because I will have to gavel you. And if conduct such as that continues, we may need to take further action against having that comment. So please maintain a civil discourse. All right. Are there any comments? Anyone? I see one hand,
Yep, I'm seeing some
two,
raised hands.
2 hands. All right.
Okay, we'll start with Suzanne Moore. Suzanne, go ahead and begin your comment. Please state your full name for the record.
Good evening, Suzanne Moore. I'd like to paraphrase one of my favorite quotes from Henry David Thoreau. In the long run, we hit only what we aim at. Therefore, we had better aim at something great. The County of San Mateo has brought together many members of our peninsula communities to discuss equitable recovery post-COVID, and much will likely happen in 2021 regionally and locally. Decisions on eviction and foreclosure moratoriums related to COVID, updates on housing, coastal safety and general plans, COVID vaccine dispensation, plans for small business support and recovery, decisions on infrastructure, including addressing the digital divide, discussion on best practices for education and childcare support. These issues impact us all. The good work ahead will require all of us to learn and be engaged. This is a quote from San Mateo County's Recovery Initiative, quote, "The effects of COVID-19 are amplifying inequities, but the recovery is an opportunity for a collective restart. To create an equitable community, systems, policies, and practices of oppression must be dismantled. Our new systems must eliminate disparities and provide access to opportunities and quality services for all unserved, underserved, under-resourced, and ineffectively served individuals and families," end of quote. This new year, Pacifica can be part of this transformation. It's time to rebuild the systems that support us all, allow not only for recovery after the pandemic, but renewal. Pacifica can commit to this effort in our annual goal setting. End homelessness through collaborative effort to provide a path through outreach, safe parking, and case management for stable, affordable housing. Find ways to create the affordable housing desperately needed by residents who are in very low to moderate range incomes, and be open to creating supportive housing for those in need of assistance to stay as independent as possible. Update the city's safety plan to ensure we build in areas free of flood, fire, seismic, or geologic risks. Update our coastal plan based on current science and listen to the concerns of Pacificans who worry about the impact on their properties. Update our general plan with a goal to sustainably serve our entire community for the common good. Our recent district elections confirmed the importance of a single vote. Equity requires diverse voices with persistent message. We need to seek out these voices, invite them in, and listen. Let's be ready for Pacifica's goal-setting session. Let's aim for something great. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Anita Reese, followed by Barry Groves.
Hello, Anita Reese with the Pacifica Resource Center. And I just want to thank the city and the community again for your ongoing support while we continue to respond to COVID and its impact on Pacifica residents. Due to the recent surge in COVID cases in our community, our office is closed to the public through January. We are, however, in the office and available to provide emergency services in person. All other services are being done by phone or virtually. Groceries are available during our drive-thru on Wednesdays at the parking lot at the American Legion Hall at 555 Fuel. If you need groceries, please contact PRC to sign up for an appointment time. Otherwise, please go to the drive-thru after 3:30. We can be reached by phone at 650-738-7470, by email at info@pacresourcecenter.org, or at our website at pacresourcecenter.org. The COVID vaccine is being given now. San Mateo County Health will host a COVID-19 vaccination What You Need to Know live on its social media channels at SMC Health at 11:30 on Wednesday the 13th. You can go to smchealth.org for more information. The live stream will be in English, Spanish, and Chinese simultaneously. PRC continues to help folks who are unable to pay their rent or mortgage. If any renter or homeowner needs help paying their January or past due rent or mortgage, please contact PRC by phone, email, or our website. We are prioritizing emergency financial assistance to meet the guidelines of the current eviction moratorium, with a focus on making sure folks can pay their February rent. We're also planning for our tax season beginning on January 30th, which will primarily be done by drop-off or virtually. I'll share more info next time as we finalize our plans. And in addition to this work, we continue to provide our Unhoused on the Coast outreach work. Please contact our UC Outreach staff by email at ucoutreach@pacresourcecenter.org or by calling Daniel Gardner at 650-575-4861 if you know or see someone who's living on the street, in an encampment, or in a vehicle. And again, if you or someone you know needs help with groceries, financial assistance for rent, mortgage, or other critical needs, access to homeless services, or anything else we might be able to help with, please contact PRC at 650-738-7470 or via our website at pacresourcecenter.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Barry Groves, and I don't see any more hands raised. If any member of the public would like to comment at this time on any items not on the agenda, please go ahead and raise your hand now. If you're dialing in, dial *9 to raise your hand. With that, I will bring up Barry Groves for his comment.
Thank you. This is actually Jim Lang. We're borrowing Barry's computer. And again, thank you for this opportunity, and welcome. Thank you to Honorable Mayor Beckmeyer and City Council members for listening. It's Jim and Sue Lang, 1135 Balboa Way, and we're speaking tonight to ask the City Council to direct City Manager Woodhouse and city staff to work with Sedgwick Insurance Company on behalf of the residents with claims affected by the pipeline component of the EQ Basin project. A fair and expedited remedy to our claims communicated back to us with status and timeline of resolve would be a minimum expectation. This has gone far too long, and the burden of proof should not solely rest on the shoulders of the victims of this project. Ongoing monitoring, pictures, etc., were promised were being taken as this project was destroying our properties. Why are they not given to the insurance company by the city for assistance to evaluate the damages? Sue and I have now had our claim in for 1 year as of tomorrow and have had no correspondence other than the one I'm going to get to in a second. I inquired with Tiffany on December 7th about us moving forward with the repairs. If I were to move forward with the repairs, and how would that affect the compensation back to us for the work? Tiffany emailed me 3 days later to share with me that our claim has been denied 100% and nothing happened from the project, and that the city is aware of this. Nothing has been told back to me. I asked if I could have this in writing, and she shared with me the insurance company does not give anything in writing, that we have to request the city to give it to us in writing, which made no sense to me since their engineers said there's no damage. Why wouldn't they give us something in writing? I also shared with her, she also shared with me that the insurance company will be sending us an offer letter that was directed by our city for our driveway approach. I question why they're going to give me that, since that was not even on my claim. And I followed up with the following question saying, if I accept that offer, does that void rest of my claim? And she said yes. That felt very deceiving. I followed up with another question saying, along this process, we were directed to report our damages to SMCI, Representative Kelly Foster. We did that. That was the initial thing. We also expanded that by telling city staff, Louis Sun, Alex Garcia at some point. We're also informing Greenleaf, Gene and Gobi for these various issues. All of our council members on council now, other than Tiger, who is not on council, you've been at least to one of our 2 community meetings, which we requested those meetings, by the way. That our properties, we were told by the city leadership, our properties will be returned back to the original condition pre-pipeline project. We also received a written notice in October from the city saying that the city was, October 2019, that the city was aware of the sidewalk, driveway, and walkway damages, and they will be repaired as part of the EQ Basin project. Later, to be told in December, that's now part of the claim process. I ask you tonight to please expedite this process. My wife and I are trying to have our house ready to sell quickly in the event we are able to find a home out of state. Where is the city communication, transparency, honesty, and compassion? Our neighborhood has dealt with this construction for what was explained as a disruption for a few weeks while they put the pipeline in to what ended up 2.5 years of construction, destruction, reconstruction, and now we're being treated as liars.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, thank you. Again, just as a public servant of 17 years, I did it with honesty, transparency, and that should be a minimum standard that the public should expect from all of us. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim.
I don't see any more hands raised at the moment. Last call for public comments on anything not on the agenda. And it looks like that completes the public comments.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to council for council communications. And I would like to call Councilmember Big Stick, since he had his hand up first. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And since I'm relatively new, I figure I probably have little to say. So I'd start by saying what little I have to say. I want to thank the mayor for bringing up the events of January 6th, which I don't know how, as a citizen of our country, it couldn't have pulled on everybody's heart. It was truly a heartbreaking moment, and spending time trying to wrap my own mind around it over the past week has been a trick in and of itself. What keeps echoing in my mind is that moment where, after hours of everybody trapped in that building asking the president to say, hey, tell them to stop, we received this short video of the president saying to the people doing it, "You're very special, I love you." And as I'm trying to wrap my head around that, to me, it's like if your 5-year-old child is taking a lighter to the curtains and the curtains are on fire, then going up to your child and saying, "Yes, I like playing with fire too. It's time to go to bed now. Feel free to keep the lighter." Pardon me if that's a simple metaphor, but I'm trying to wrap my head around these people attacking our Capitol and their leader telling them, "You're very special, I love you." So that's my 2 cents. We've received comment, it looked like it was a group message from at least one constituent recommending a resolution condemning the president's conduct. And I'm certainly, I just wanted to present that as an option if there are other council members who might also be interested in following up on that resolution. Thank you. Oh, so that's that stuff. And I'm going to come back to city now. During the time between when I was sworn in and now, I've been to a small handful of meetings. I attended the Coastal Commission Joint Study Session, in which I had the pleasure of hearing our mayor and former Mayor Vaderlaus speak on behalf of our city. And overall, it was a good discussion about trying to find the balance of how to properly help coastal communities to maintain their communities, hopefully, while also acknowledging and doing something about sea level rise. So I look forward to seeing what the fruits of these conversations wind up being in the future. I attended the OSPAC meeting in the audience about the 650 Cape Breton site. I've been getting a lot of feedback about that. So it's very much in my mind to just keep watching this as it unfolds. I'm aware and gathering knowledge at this point and seeing what's happening. So that was an interesting meeting. And then I had the pleasure of being sworn in on the board of Peninsula Clean Energy, and attended that meeting with Mayor Pro Tem Beer. And that was fascinating. I started learning a whole lot about stuff I do not inherently know about. The PCE welcomed Los Banos into the Peninsula Clean Energy family, which was very nice. We voted to lease a wind energy farm. So in the pursuit of getting more and more clean energy into the grid, we had some success there. There was a robust discussion about whether to enter into a JPA with other organizations like ourselves to be able to leverage our power to get some good deals. So it was a robust discussion. We didn't vote at the time, but that's going to be coming back to a vote after some members get some more information about that. And also PC put forth a water heater rebate program. And as I was visiting the website, I noticed several such programs through peninsulacleanenergy.com to help folks who want to get that clean energy into their lives and could use some help doing it. So there's opportunities there for anyone who wants to follow up. And that's what I've got. Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
Can I go ahead and follow up on that if you don't mind?
Please.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be back. I'll just want to follow up on what Councilmember Big Stick, and welcome to you and congratulations, Sue, on your election. Very happy to have you. To follow up on Peninsula Clean Energy, there's really so much going on there, and Councilmember Big Stick really did explain things really well, so thank you for that. There's just there's a program summary that you can find on their website as well. I am peninsulacleanenergy.com. So go ahead and take a look because it's really well done. And so you can see all the different projects and programs that they're running. So yeah, break was good. In between then and now, I attended the small business protest, which happened in the parking lot at Seabowl. It was it's hard for me to not be able to help people right away. And so that was hard for me personally. What was beautiful was to see the community coming together because they were supporting each other. So there was small business after small business there supporting each other. And I think that's one of the main things that we really need to do. And we'll talk about more resources later on this evening. But I was really glad I was there. I attended the Pacifica Resource Center board meeting, and you heard from Anita this evening. So thank you, Anita, for all the work that you're doing. I also attended the OSPAC just for the first half, and then I attended the emergency preparedness meeting. I am also going to make a statement about what happened in our Capitol. And I would be fine for it to do a resolution, so count me in on that. The awful display of domestic terrorism, racist white supremacy, and just vengeance incited by Trump. It was horrifying. And it took me a couple days to even come out of the fog of recognizing all that happened. I work with young people, and we had several conversations. We actually did a podcast on that day at 3 o'clock. And so to hear their direct reaction to all the things that were going on, it's always really important for me to hear them and hear how affected they are and how scared they are and how angry they are. And so there's all these feelings that are going on in our communities and with our young people. And so we really need to make sure to talk to our young people about what's going on because they're hearing it all over the place. So make sure to talk to your kids or your friends or whoever you can about what's going on. And yes, I've been approached, like I'm sure we all have, about where do you stand and what's your statement? And if you need to ask me where I stand, well, I stand with our electeds, right? I stand with our council, our Congresswoman, Jackie Spear, who we've all gotten to know. I respect all of the electeds in that building. I cannot imagine having that happen during one of our meetings where we had to duck and cover and scatter and they came back. They came back and did the work, the people's work. And I think that's awesome. And that makes me proud to be an elected official because I'm here to represent you. And so please understand that I take pride in that and I take it very seriously. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that. And it really is good to be back and to have a new council member, and looking forward to doing some goal setting. Really looking forward to that. And Mayor Beckmeyer, you're doing a great job.
Well, thanks for backing me up. Seeing no council member Vaterlos at the moment, I will call upon our council member O'Neill.
I thought maybe Sue went for a walk on the beach there. She got
Oh
off
yes,
the
that
screen.
she was there. I'm sorry, I missed her.
Yes, she went for a walk on the beach with her screensaver. I attended the Open Space Committee meeting in December to see about that proposal back on Cape Breton what the church was proposing. I also, and then after that, everything was pretty dead. I did sign up. We'll be attending in February, I think, from the airport roundtable of some of the effects of airport noise, etc. And I'll be attending that via Zoom in February. Did meet with the executive person for the airport roundtable, and we kind of discussed the next the coming year and what we wanted to do. So that'll be happening. But other than that, all the rest of my committees kind of, didn't meet because it was that time of year. And in regards to the events on January 6th in the Capitol, as most people who know me know, I do like history. And I think there was a couple things there that were really interesting. Is we've all seen that picture of the guy carrying the Confederate flag, and there was a portrait of somebody behind him there. The portrait of the guy the person on that portrait was Charles Sumner, who was someone that was in Congress or in the Senate, and was almost beaten to death by a member of Congress from the South, because Sumner was such an abolitionist. And in front of his picture was the Confederate flag. And to think that this country did have the Civil War and almost 400,000 people died to keep the Confederate flag out of that building. And to see that we had a president encourage that behavior and continue to encourage it, I think is a sad commentary on the political life of the United States at this point. And I do think, there was another viral thing that was going around is, my wife's a school principal, and they have to do shooting drills, for live shooters. And there was one written by some girl that was like 12 or 13 years old. And she said, wow, they actually had to do a shooting drill. I've had to do that since I was in kindergarten. And I think that's another sad commentary, the fact that our kids could identify with congressmen because they were ducking under their desks as well. So that's my thoughts on January 6th. A sad day.
Thank you. Council member Vaterlos.
I condemn all violence, rioting, disruption of life and business, and Congress. I did have the honor to have Jackie Spear at one of my meetings I was attending, and she is definitely shaken. This was last Friday. Having gone through what she's gone through, suffering from the PTSD of thinking that someone was going to come in and actually murder her. And it was very difficult. I did have way more meetings than I thought. I had a meeting with Josh Becker, Kevin Mullen. I did Aaron Clark's goodbye party, which was fun. Drive-by. I spoke at the Coastal Commission about sea level rise and our need for help with the sea level rise issues. The Council of Cities, we had, they didn't have a speaker, so I arranged for the COVID Recovery Committee to come and speak to us about COVID. I had the county meeting, which is always good. And I attended the Siebel protest for small business, which was really nice to see community people coming together. I've decided at the meetings that I'm going to say a little bit about all the meetings from now on and maybe post notes because some of them are very extensive. The COVID Recovery Council met on Friday, and as of Friday, we only have done 12,000 injections for the vaccine. Now, the first phase has 50,000 people in it. And we don't have that many vaccines here, but it's not very organized. I watched the news tonight that said all of the states and the counties all need help because to suddenly dump a bunch of vaccines and have groups of people that you're supposed to vaccinate is almost impossible to do overnight. And it did happen overnight. So their phases and the phases are getting changed all the time. Right now it's healthcare workers and long-term care, and then it'll be people 75 and over. I do want to stress that we had 9,000 new cases of COVID in the county in 30 days. That's more than 25% of our total cases we got in 30 days. They attribute it mainly to public gatherings, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Now we're waiting for the New Year surge. We have very few hospital beds available. So if people could please follow the direction. I know everyone knows what it is, but because you think your family members, you may not be in the same pod or the same group because entire families are getting the virus. This county has a vaccine webinar January 13th at 11:30 to talk about the vaccines. And if you go to smchealth.org, you can sign up for that so that you can learn more about the vaccines. But it is an ever-changing thing. I mean, when the presidential change happens, he may release all of the vaccines at once. And then we're going to have to deal with that because we haven't been able to give enough right now. We need healthcare workers to actually give the vaccines. They are working with 2 pharmacies and Safeway pharmacies to go out to congregate living facilities. The pharmacists, I suppose, are going to be the ones who are giving the injections, but they are going to leave their facilities to go to other facilities to give the vaccines. So it's a moving target. It changes all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vargas. That was awesome.
Thanks very much, Councilmember Vaterlas. I did want to ask, in the meetings that you've been attending, have you heard any words about asking for volunteers who are medically trained?
Well, one of the things that they said at our meeting, which I haven't been able to locate anywhere else, is that with the vaccines, there's a risk of anaphylactic shock. And so they were saying, I've seen drive-through vaccination places on TV, but what our county health officer said was, you must wait for 15 minutes after you get the shot and be monitored by a health professional so that you don't have anaphylactic shock. So that's a part of the problem right now, is because if you drove through, you would still need to be monitored. So it's an extensive amount of time it would take to watch everybody for those 15 minutes. Now, I haven't seen that on TV or anywhere else, but that's what the health official told us. And that's part of their problem.
The timing, in terms of the timing of the administration of the vaccine. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, many of the meetings that I attended have already been mentioned. I did speak during the Coastal Commission. There was a meeting of the Coastal Cities Group Leadership Committee, which is representatives for coastal cities across the state, meeting with coastal commissioners, and Council Member Vaterlas and I did speak, and I attended the entire meeting so that I could take careful notes, because I will be representing our San Mateo County coast cities of Half Moon Bay, Pacifica, and Daly City, as well as San Francisco City and County, Marin, Sonoma, on that coastal cities group, starting with our very first meeting, which is on January 21st. So I've been paying close attention to that group since I applied to be the representative a year ago and wasn't selected. And I was pleased to be selected this time, because these are very important issues for our town. And I feel like we need to make sure that we have a strong voice for smaller cities in how we have to implement Coastal Commission guidelines. The rally that was put together by the Pacifica Brewery owners in cooperation in conjunction with Longboard Margarita Bar, I thought that was a really excellent showing, and I was pleased to see some media attention to it. The main thing that, of course, is the most horrifying for those businesses is that, being in the deep purple that we are, they've had to close their outdoor dining options. So, and certainly any limited indoor dining that had been allowed back is now off the table. So it's more important than ever for us to continue supporting those businesses. Please do think about takeout from those businesses, gift certificates. We are the Economic Development Committee, the city manager and his staff and city staff are all pushing out information to our local businesses as frequently as possible, as soon as it comes available, so that they know what funds are available. There is a new webinar that's coming up with the SBA, Small Business Association, how to pivot your business, and SBA resources for business recovery. That is also on January 13th. That one is at 1 p.m. and information can be found through through the city's website, and the city will be pushing it out, but also through the San Mateo County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And Anita Reese mentioned the meeting that is going to be broadcast via Facebook Live Wednesday, also January 13th. This one's at 11:30, and it is a virtual town hall specifically regarding the county's vaccination strategy. If you would like to have a preview of that information, the city again will be pushing out the information through many channels, but it is available online through SMC, San Mateo County, smchealth.org. And if you go to COVID-19-vaccination. So those are two really important sources of information for people that are able to access online information. I think that's about it. I think we should move on to our staff communications, if there's nothing further from council. Okay. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor Beckmeyer and Mayor Pro Tem Beer and council members. Happy 2021. We're off to a roaring start, as the events of last week have indicated. I did want to make some comments about activities related to COVID-19, which seems to be something that certainly doesn't take a holiday break. And as Councilmember Vaterlas mentioned and others, the stats are really dramatic currently. So I won't reiterate all of that, but the infection rates are very high, deaths very high, positive tests very high. And so we are, waiting this additional January spike. In the meantime, we continue to be really active in pushing out information. Just prior to Christmas, before the holiday closure, a new communication from the mayor went out to the community. And then between Christmas and New Year's, we pushed out information directly to all of the businesses in Pacifica. And I wanted to share something that I'm pleased by regarding that is that we emailed directly to over 1,800 businesses, and that message had a 40% open rate. So that's actually really high. So shows the importance of that information that we continue to push out. Just to take the opportunity to reiterate what others have already mentioned, on Wednesday, there are 2 forums, the county's town hall related to the vaccination process. And there's also, as mentioned, the Small Business Association webinar related to the new Paycheck Protection Program rollout. Both of those are on Wednesday. We will be blasting out on social media those details and information tomorrow. So, and it'll be on the city's website. Changing topics, Financial Services Manager Sheila Choyao and I this morning presented to the County Oversight Board, which is the board that oversees all the redevelopment agency dissolution from back in the 2011-2012. We presented to them our annual justification for receiving what's called our recognized obligation payment, which amounts this year to about $245,000 that represents payment obligations for redevelopment agency loans that the city has. So it's kind of an administrative procedure, but it's an important one to justify that we get that money because we have to make those loan payments that the redevelopment agency used to make, as the city is the successor agency to the redevelopment agency. Sorry for that complicated explanation, but I wanted to share that the Oversight Board did adopt our resolution, and so that will be forwarded along to be able to receive that payment, which we fully anticipate. Finally, the other thing that doesn't take a holiday break is nature and the ocean and high swells and surf, and nor does our Public Works Department really take a holiday break because they were incredibly busy. So I just wanted to shout out kudos to Public Works staff who have been incredibly busy working on some significant emergency seawall repairs along Beach Boulevard near the pier. And there's quite a bit of activity going on there. There's been, intermittent street closures and some inconvenience to residents, but there's some really important repairs that are taking place and really speak to the importance of our Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project and the work that that's designing to help protect our West Shark Park area in the future. So again, shout out to Public Works for a lot of long hours during that time period. I walked by there today and employees were out, cleaning up a lot of the sand from the high surf and everything. So they're doing an astounding job and everyone really appreciates that. So I'll end on that positive note, and that completes my communications.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. So we have 2 items for consideration this evening. The first one is for us we council members to discuss and agree to the 2021 City Council Liaison and Committee assignments. So we'll be reviewing that list and any annotations that we need to make to the list that was provided in our packet. If you have information about meeting time or something that isn't clear, please bring that forward. Or if it isn't, if it isn't in there or if it isn't correct, please bring that forward so we can make sure to annotate the list and get it correct. And before we go into our conversation on that, I'm going to invite public comment on this item. Sarah, did you have a staff report for us on that?
Just briefly, I'll state that this is an annual process of the City Council reviewing the liaison and committee assignments to other agencies and liaisons to city committees and commissions by the council. So this list is reviewed each year, typically during the first meeting in January, and adjustments are made for the upcoming which will be the 2021 year for us.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see if there's any public comment on this item before we have our council discussion. I'm checking, but I'm sure I'm not seeing it probably.
I'm not seeing hands raised at the moment for any comments on agenda item number 8. Any member of the public wishing to comment on agenda item number 8, please raise your hand now or dial *9 to raise your hand if you're dialing in.
Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to bring it back to council. Before we start, I do want to say, just for clarification, that there are a few items on this list. There's a bolded line about 2/3 of the way down. And those items are asterisks. It starts with local agency formation commission, LAFCO. Those items are ones that are, the decision is made by other entities, not ourselves, as to who the person is going to be. So that's through the city selection committee primarily, but there are other means. And I noted I had another copy of this, and it didn't have the Domestic Violence Council crossed out, but that is because the term expired. Is that right, Council Member O'Neill or City Clerk Coffey?
That's right. My understanding for that one is that selection is made, I believe, by the City Selection Committee, and that term had expired.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to double check. That's what I figured. And so the other note I wanted to make is that for the, where is it? Peninsula Clean Energy. On our document, and what was in the packet is there are some highlighted parts where former Mayor Martin was taking either the council representative seat or the council alternate seat. And so on the CCAG representative, I noted it wasn't highlighted for the alternate. So you might want to make a little highlight on your page there. And with regard to the Peninsula Clean Energy JPA, this is a decision among the council, this council, to determine who the person is. It's not a decision for Peninsula Clean Energy to make. And so in as much as Councilmember Beer was the council alternate in the past, I wanted to offer to her the opportunity to be the representative from Pacifica, and then suggest that perhaps if the rest of the council is in agreement, that Councilmember Big Stick could be the alternate. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that, Commissioner Big Stick? I mean, council
That sounds good to me. I received some emails that indicated I should attend the last meeting, so I did. And now that I'm here, I'm good.
And you're sworn in.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, the cart was a bit before the horse, but it seems like we got there anyway. So thank you.
Okay, so we'll put Councilmember Beer as the council representative, and we'll put Councilmember Big Stick as the alternate. And then we'll communicate with their board chair or staff that we need to make that, we've made that assignment. Okay, so my general approach to this, you know, and what I've observed in 2 years that I've been on council has been that if you're happy with the let me put it this way, if you're happy with the placement that you have, and or you're very willing to stoically continue marching forward in that role, in some of the placements aren't as dynamic as others, but they're all responsibilities that we have. And so with regard to, you know, we can work our way down the list if that's okay with you, just so that you're clear that we didn't miss any. And I'll start with ABAG, General Assembly Delegate, which I have been and I'm willing to continue being. But if there is another council member that wishes to do that, I would certainly entertain a switch. And council member Vaterlas is the alternate on that.
Fine.
Yes.
Oh.
Go ahead, council member Big Stick.
I certainly express interest in it. I certainly express interest in it, depending on, I don't feel like arguing anything. So if you want to switch out, I'm happy to. If you want to give me a shot at it, I'd be happy at that too.
You can take my position as alternate.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to the next one, Airport Community Roundtable. We're looking for someone to take the council alternate. I'm assuming based on his earlier comments that council member O'Neill is stoically continuing marching ever forward as our council representative.
Yes, just fly around the round table. Yeah.
So we need an alternate. And that meeting is on the first Wednesday of the month.
At what time?
At 7:30 p.m. in various locations.
It's usually, other than Zoom, it's usually in Millbury at the Jed Cutie room in the community center, right by the library. Is where it's usually at.
And I'm sorry, which Wednesday?
It's the first Wednesday of the month, 7:30 p.m.
Unless, well, if someone else wants to, feel free to be.
I didn't miss any last year, so if I need somebody, I can just call around and see.
Well, I'd like to have the alternate spot filled in if we could, if we can
All right.
possibly.
I'll go in the alternate spot. But
Thank you very much.
You better go, Mike.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be masochist and have anybody else go, or sadist, I guess, whichever way it is,
And Mike, do you have the information on that conference that you're attending handy to forward on to Councilmember Vaterlas if she has an interest?
Yeah. I had sent it to Kevin because I had a question about it. So we will forward that to Sue.
It's a Zoom. It's apparently ordinarily held, I think, at UC Davis. Councilmember Vaterlas, you
Right.
might be interested, but it's Zoom. It's virtual, of course, this year. Okay, Beautification Advisory Committee. I'm the council representative for that, which I intend to continue. And we need an alternate, which is also that same night, first Wednesday of the month. That's at 6:30. It's by Zoom now, but ordinarily meets in the PB&R conference room. So I don't know what people's first Wednesdays of the month are like, if anyone's available.
Mine's booked already.
Yes, I know.
It's actually a fun committee, guys. I mean, it is kind of fun. You get to see about the murals and stuff and the plantings and all that. I mean, it is a more fun committee to liaison to be and nice people.
I can do it unless Tiger would like to do it.
volunteered first, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, CCAG. I gave this a lot of thought and took in a lot of feedback from people about this, not necessarily council members, because it's an important committee for us. It's important in the county. And what's important, I think, for us is there's a ton of information that comes through that. And so I think it's important to have consistency. And I did hear from Councilmember Vaterlas that she's willing to continue as the council rep, and I would like to have her do that. And I would like to propose that I take the alternate on that one.
Okay.
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 Okay. Colma Creek Flood Control meets the second Tuesday of the month, and it's a quarterly meeting. So some second Tuesday of the month, once a quarter, 1 month, whatever. I don't know what the cycle is. Did you want to comment on that, Councilmember Vaterlas?
We have this little tiny speck of Colma Creek in Pacifica, but they do control part of our creek bonds. So I will continue there. They may merge into the flood sea level rise district. So
Okay.
they have not done that yet, but they may end up doing that. And then we won't be there. It's an interesting, we have terms. So I'm still in my term there.
Got it. And Councilmember O'Neill is listed as the alternate. Would you be considering, continuing in that?
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've always gone too, Mike. So
Yeah, I know.
I've always attended.
Okay, great. And then Economic Development Committee, Councilmember Beckmeyer and Councilmember O'Neill are the two that have been working with that group. I would like to continue.
And I'm okay with continuing.
Okay. So the way we've worked it is if one of the two of us couldn't be there, the other one is there. We can fill in an alternate spot if someone would like to be in that spot. Okay, Councilmember Big Stick. Great. Emergency Preparedness and Safety Committee. Councilmember Beer.
Yeah, I'm willing to step down from that.
Okay, that's the third Wednesday of the month. And I'm noting that the other third Wednesday of the month item is.
Oh, that's right, the open space.
Right, which you are alternate for. Now, what was your feeling about open space?
Well, I never got to go.
And so that's my question is, having been the alternate, did you want to switch it to that one instead of emergency preparedness?
I mean, that would be fine with me. I feel like I'd like to make sure that Councilmember Big Stick has a regular role somewhere.
I would as well.
That happens. So, you can speak up and let us know which one you would rather have out of those two, if you are able.
I'm not sure which one I'd rather have. I think like I'm potentially more interested in OSPAC, but I think that emergency is probably where I should be, because I think that's the stuff that I should be learning about right now is our emergency preparedness. So if those are my choices, I'll go with emergency preparedness so that I have a clear sense of what's going on in our community.
Cool. And it's a great group of people.
Okay, so
yeah.
So that'll be Councilmember Big Stick as the representative for emergency preparedness, and who would be the alternate? When is?
I mean, did that, and so she was able to, if I couldn't get to emergency preparedness, she'd hop in for the second half of the meeting. But no, it's probably better to have someone there the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I can be the alternate if you need somebody. That's fine.
Okay. O'Neill. Thank you.
And I'm assuming Sarah's going to send this out to us, right? Because I'm not writing this down. Okay, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm tracking the updates and I'll send the final around to you.
God, I knew there was a reason we kept you.
Thank you very much, City Clerk Coffee. Emergency Services Council for San Mateo County. Sue Vaterlos is council representative and Beer is alternate.
I will still do that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I never got any information about that, I don't think.
That I've always went.
Okay.
So
Okay. Fogfest Committee Liaison. Vaterlos is council rep and we need an alternate. Unless Vaterlos doesn't want to be, Councilmember Vaterlos doesn't want to do it anymore or isn't able to.
I do.
Does that fit into your schedule?
You know what? I never got called. So do you know when they meet?
Who knows?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I could find out pretty quickly.
I can find out. I'll find out tomorrow. I can do it. Unless it's on the third Thursday or the,
I don't remember when it is.
I went to one of their meetings once and it seemed to me it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday at the Moose Lodge.
I feel like it was too, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And,
It's
yeah.
Those 10, yeah, okay, so those are good days. Thursdays are bad for you, right?
Yeah, and I can be the alternate for her.
Okay,
That's Fogfest?
yes, sir.
Okay.
And I plan on attending all the meetings, not as needed, but I plan on attending.
Yeah. And so as soon as we confirm, and when you confirm that information, will you give it to Clerk Coffee, please? So we
Yes.
can get it on the list. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Housing Our People Effectively, HOPE, Interagency Council, Councilmember Beer.
Yeah, I'm keeping that.
Okay, and the alternate as Vaterlos?
Give up, but this one I'm gonna keep.
Yes.
Yes and yes, okay. Joint School District, Water District, City Articulation Committee. I don't have an idea of the meeting days. I don't know if it bounces
It's
around.
as announced, usually on a Thursday, and I'll be happy to stay there.
5 o'clock.
It's Thursdays at 5, some Thursday of the month.
Like once a quarter or 3 times a
quarter.
year, something like that.
So should we continue with Beer and O'Neill on that?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too. Again, I want to make sure that Tiger gets some regular roles, but we'll get you. Okay. Yes, I would like to stay there.
No
Okay.
worries.
Okay.
Okay. And so we probably don't need an alternate because just one of you would go if the other one couldn't make it, right?
Mhm.
Or do we want an alternate?
No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Library Advisory Committee. I'm on that and Council Mayor Pro Tem Beer is as well. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. North Coast County Fire Authority, JPA.
If you want something, speak up.
That was one that I had an interest in, but I also don't want to step on toes. So you are right insofar as, I don't want to step on toes. Library advisory, if you're indifferent, I'll be happy to fill that spot. If you are passionate, then I will not step on a toe.
No, sure. Why don't you do that?
Okay, gladly.
Okay, so Beckmeyer and Big Stick. All right. North Coast County Fire, Beckmeyer and O'Neill.
I'm okay. I mean, that's one meeting a year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not often. And
15 minutes. So
yeah, it's a quick one.
Yeah.
Did you, I don't know when it is though. I can't.
It's May, usually May.
We don't know a day, so it's hard to decide if you can do it, Tiger, if you wanted to do that one.
Yes, I do have interest in it. I
Oh,
don't
I
know
just-
the availability until I know the availability.
Right. Well, why don't we do this? I know it's worked for me in the past, so why don't we put you in with Mike? And then I'll go in as alternate if something happened and we needed somebody.
This is the one where they usually send a doodle pool out and see when everybody's available. So they usually make it,
Oh, okay.
they usually accommodate everybody's schedule
Oh,
as
got
best
it.
they can.
Yeah, you're right. I
So,
forgot about that. Okay, then
yeah.
we don't need to put me on there. We'll just go with you two. Is that okay with you?
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to Open Space Parkland Advisory Committee. Mary, you're going to move over to the representative spot. And anyone else interested specifically? I'll put myself in as the alternate. Oops, I'm on the wrong line. Oh, there I am. Okay. PCT, Pacifica Community Television. We have O'Neill and Batterloss.
I'll stay there because I'm kind of involved with them.
Yeah.
I'll stay too.
Okay. Pacific Beach Coalition, second Tuesday, 6 p.m.
You know, the Beach Coalition is not a real standing committee in Pacifica. We do give them funds, but they are not a standing Pacifica committee.
You mean an official city committee, you mean?
Yes.
But they're on here. Well, neither is Pacifica School Volunteers.
Right.
Okay.
Or
the Resource Center.
PRC.
Television.
Right.
Or community television, yeah.
Yeah, there's other
Sarah.
community organizations and committees on here that aren't particularly city committees or commissions that have city representatives on those. So Pacific, it should be Pacific Beach Coalition now. I'll make that correction.
Yes, thank you. My goodness.
Pacifica Resource Center and Pacifica School Volunteers are examples of those that have a city representative on them.
Well, I can say that just since you mentioned the three, I'm on the board of, and I don't know if that matters, but I am on the board of Pacifica School Volunteers. So I'm going to that one anyway. I'll be there. And
I mean,
so
I'll do the Beach Coalition if nobody else wants it.
Tiger, I have another meeting that night. I can't do it. I have economic development.
The alternate on economic development, and I was hoping to go to those meetings anyway to learn about it. But if you need me to do that one and swap out as needed, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, put me down then, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to put Beer as the representative and Big Stick as the alternate. Okay. Then we have Pacifica Resource Center, Beer and.
Can we switch them? So I know Tiger wants that one.
Big Stick?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And I'll be the alternate.
Big Stick?
Anyway, so.
In
You're
the
gonna
council.
be the alternate? You're gonna give me the primary? Oh, you are a nice lady.
Yeah.
We knew that already, but I'm gonna say it publicly because I can. You're a nice lady.
She's a nice
Thank you.
lady.
I appreciate that, Mary.
Okay, so Councilmember Big Stick will be the council representative and council alternate will be Beer. And Pacifica School Volunteers, what do you want to do with that, Mary?
I'll keep it.
Okay. I
never heard about, I don't think I got any information last time, but.
We'll make sure that we get that information to you, and then I'll put, if it's okay with you, Mike, if I go as second, or do you want to go to that?
No, you can go. That's fine.
Okay.
Oh, that's a lot. Okay.
I know. Now we have Peninsula Clean Energy, and I had made that proposal to switch the two positions. So we'll have Beer in the representative position and Big Stick in the alternate. We are now on Peninsula Congestion Relief Alliance, commute.org. Mike, when does it meet?
Usually it's about 8 o'clock in the morning, once a quarter or once every other month. It isn't real heavy duty. They actually do nothing in Pacifica, but it's interesting to go over there and hear about how much they do over the hill. You know, with shuttles and buses and everything else. You know, but their main focus is like the last mile of transportation. You know, let's say the Caltrain station to the front door of the office building, and that's their main focus. And we just don't have any main front doors here of buildings, and we don't have a train track. So, you know, but it's a nice group of people, you know, so I'll just keep doing it.
Okay, does anyone want to be second on that?
Yeah, we do I think have to name a second, because this is a Form 700 committee where if I don't go, the other person has to fill out that economic form. You know, so we have to. She went for me once, I think.
Okay.
So we do need an alternate.
Great. And you're willing to do that, Councilmember Vaterlos? Yes? Great. Thank you. San Mateo County JPA Advanced Life Support. I've been attending that one. If you are interested in joining me on that or taking that one, Tiger, I don't know if it fits in your schedule. Of course, the meeting times change a lot too, but we do have them confirmed. Although I believe the 20th, City Clerk Coffee, that meeting on the 20th just got canceled, if I recall. Do you remember? I forwarded it to you.
For the San Mateo County Advanced Life Support?
Yes.
I'd have to double check to confirm that it was canceled.
Okay, thank you. What
do they do?
What it is the ambulance service. The EMT
AMR? Okay.
And so it's because it's a JPA that we are part of for that. So it does tie in with emergency preparedness and safety, kind of. I don't know if you're interested in that, if you want to participate in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like a third Wednesday thing, and so that looks like it doesn't conflict. So yes, that was one of the ones on my radar for sure.
I thought emergency preparedness is third Wednesday though. Are those Wednesdays? All Wednesdays? They are. Are those the third Wednesdays?
Never mind. Yeah, and I just didn't write down that one, unlike all of the rest of them. So that knocks me out of that running.
Okay. Well, I can keep it. I don't mind. And San Mateo County Library JPA.
I'd like to stay as is.
I figured. Who else is interested?
I can be interested in that one if no one else is volunteering.
To be the alternate?
Absolutely.
They usually meet around 8:15 in the morning, and it's usually down at the San Mateo by headquarters near the elections office at corner of Belmont and 92 and 280.
Is that okay with you, Councilmember Big Stick? Okay.
Fine by me.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or last thoughts on this?
Just on the other agencies that are appointed by those agencies, I believe we need to add one for what is it? The
I'll tell you.
San Mateo County COVID Recovery Council that Councilmember Vaterlas sits on should probably be reflected on this list.
Mm-hmm.
And Council of Cities, Councilmember Vaterlas is the chair of that committee.
And I'm the chair of City Selection Committee with the county.
Did the woman from East Palo Alto take over the Council of Cities?
No, I am still the chair.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
do-over. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. I attended those meetings.
It's a do-over.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So,
didn't, yeah, I mean, I have to admit it was an odd year, right? You know?
Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah, and all council members can attend those meetings. And I will be attending as our voting representative for the city selection committees. And if I can't do it, then can you, for some reason, council member Vaterlas, can you do it, or do we have to? We have to do the proxy.
We have to fill out a proxy form, but yes, I can.
And so that's a time by time thing. It's not a standing proxy.
You, for the city selection committee, you can appoint a standing proxy to serve on your behalf as the mayor. But if it's meeting by meeting, for instance, if there is a particular meeting that the mayor cannot attend, then that would be a proxy form that covers that particular meeting only.
So I think that's probably all we would need to do if it comes up. Okay. Any other notes or comments? All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, City Clerk, for getting all those notes. And you'll get us a new copy.
Yes. So for this item, if somebody could make a motion to, and we'll have a second and vote.
I move to approve the committee assignments as stated.
I'll second.
So motion to approve the assignments for 2021 as stated by O'Neill with a second by Big Stick, and I'll call the roll call vote. Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlas.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And the council liaison assignments passes unanimously.
Okay. So moving on to item 9. This is an item that was added by myself and Mayor Pro Tem Beer in the interest of time. And that is why it was added late to our agenda. And it's because it's COVID related. It was urgent enough for us to feel that we needed to bring it forward. And so we have a concept to discuss the idea of a virtual town hall meeting for COVID, for disseminating COVID information. The more that this goes on, the more information there is, but it's changing all the time. So I just wanted to frame it in that way. If anyone's wondering why did this get added to the agenda late? And did you have a staff report or an introduction, City Manager Woodhouse?
Thank you, Mayor Beckmeyer, Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. I didn't really, I was going to leave it to you and Mayor Pro Tem Beer to kind of express the concept. All that I would add at this point, just in introducing it, is as the council is aware, the city is working on, has been for a year now, or not quite a year, but a long time, at disseminating information through many channels. And so the concept of a virtual town hall is another channel that could reach people. And so I think that's what the council needs to discuss. And I'm happy to weigh in throughout the discussion about, organizing and holding things like town hall meetings with representatives from other agencies takes some legwork to coordinate and get done. And staff's operating at 120%. So I can weigh in on sort of priority juggling as necessary, depending on what the concept is that the council discusses.
Okay, so Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to give a kind of flesh out our framework a little bit?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So I've been talking to some members of the community, and they've suggested town halls, and I've done town halls in the past through my job. So the main outcome for a town hall is to have visible leadership sharing the important information so that our community can see our local leaders sharing the important information to them, because there's a lot of feeling out there that we don't care, right? And so this is just one way to be really visible with the information. And we can have an assortment of folks from different sectors, and we can, and I thought about staff. I've been thinking about it since we brought it up, and I want to make it as minimal as possible. We don't want to put more work than necessary on our staff. And so the staff's role would be to help us get the information out and maybe help with some of the organizing if there's questions and answers or something like that. And we can talk about this. So I'm interested in hearing all of your ideas. We can also collaborate with our local outreach collaboratives. So we have the North County Outreach Collaborative that we can collaborate. I know I say it all the time. It's just what I do. But there's folks that will be able to help out and show up. And so like we could have someone from SAMCETA, like the core agencies. We can have county health officer. So we have the deputy county health officer, is a Pacifica resident, Dr. Curtis Chan. We can have the school districts show up and just get all the information out. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
And one idea that we had discussed was about approaching PCT as well, depending on, of course, scheduling and all of that. And the concept, the idea was, as soon as possible, within reason, for confirming people's schedules and dates. The thing that, we were announcing about the meetings coming up on this Wednesday, the 13th, there's going to be information presented there that we would want to be amplifying, I think, but it's changing too. It's evolving, and every week that Councilmember Vaterlas goes to the COVID recovery meeting, there's going to be something new and all of that. So in terms of the different roles that we are all playing, both on behalf of council, but in our lives, if you can think about, and give feedback on any thoughts about who needs information, what information are they needing. I'm going to just say my personal observation and what I'm hearing is people are very interested in needing information about vaccines. And while I know some information about it, it's a little bit confusing, the way that it's structured. And so I'm certainly going to be listening intently on Wednesday to see if there's a little bit less confusing granularity to it. I think the central question that most people want to know is, when can I get my vaccine? There are some people who want to know, do I have to get a vaccine? That's a question that has come up, not to me personally, but I know there have been people who've responded to that question. So what are your thoughts?
Sorry, I want to say,
jump in.
I did ask that question at the COVID Recovery Council, and they said definitely not. There are no plans. Federal government has not issued a mandate, nor has the state or the county, that you must get the vaccine. I know I've gotten several emails about that, so I asked the question, and she said it will not be mandated. that you go get it.
Right.
That's the answer, short answer to that question.
Okay. So I do have a question. I was speaking with a council member from another city and hearing about, and who was it? About police and vaccine. I don't recall really hearing about police other than, I mean, are they part of the 1A? Is that the first responder group, or was that only fire and EMTs?
So, Madam Mayor, with regard to city employees, we are currently in the midst of figuring out what the EEOC guidelines are on this. And it's actually something that the city attorney's office will be working with the city manager and the assistant city manager to determine that. And we wouldn't be bringing that information to the public. It really isn't.
I wasn't, I was
Employee
referring
personnel
mostly
matter.
to the county information that had been put out already. That's all. Okay, so we'll be hearing back from city manager and city attorney on that in the future.
What I can add, fire personnel has already begun receiving vaccinations, and I see Chief Steidel popping potentially on the line, and he may have information to share about when police are currently scheduled. I think what City Attorney Kenyon is referring to is there's a lot of logistics about requirements along that front, but
Right.
Chief
And all I
Steidel-
would say before anyone begins speaking on this is we're not mandating vaccines on any employees, or there's no mandated vaccine on citizens in the city. So there's no mandated requirements yet.
Understood. Chief Steidel.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm Dan Steidel, Chief of Police. So regarding the law enforcement vaccinations, the San Mateo County Police Chiefs and Sheriff Association is currently, we have a liaison that's assigned to that right now. We're expecting to hear a little bit more about it tomorrow, but right now the plan is tentatively by the end of January or the beginning of February, law enforcement personnel in this county will be receiving the vaccination.
Thank you.
If I could add, I don't think the intent of this conversation is sort of to dive into the actual information about each of these topics related to COVID. But the conversation we just had does highlight an element the council may want to discuss, which is to sort of establish and manage the expectations of information that will be provided at a town hall. I can speak from my experience over the last year that this is information where a lot of times there's not an answer to it, or there's not information that the city has because we don't make those decisions. Perhaps the county health does, or perhaps the state does. So in just holding a town hall, we could be providing the best information available, and then it could change 2 days later. Or we won't know what information is available until the day of the town hall. So in sort of establishing the expectations about what we're going to achieve in the town hall, that's an important topic for the council to discuss.
Okay. Thank you. Can I ask this question of the city manager? Are you receiving questions directly from citizens that the city's responding to directly?
We, interestingly, I could let Chief Steidel or others pop on and say, but to my knowledge, the city's not receiving a lot of questions about vaccinations or what's happening with the new strain, or when are the schools going to open, or maybe the largest, I should say, over the last couple of months, not many questions. Early on, a lot of questions from businesses about can we be open or not. So we worked through that. But in the past few months, we don't receive directly a lot of questions, and that could speak to over this time period. The public has learned that, if they have a health question, the resources that are available to go to and ask that question directly to the county instead of to the city, so not a lot. And I invite any department directors to speak differently if they're aware of differently. I would say one area we receive a lot are the areas that we do control, which is like, well, when is the pool going to open, or how are senior programs going to work, or how is rec going to work? Because that's stuff that we do control to an extent.
Yeah.
And Chief
Did
Stein,
you have?
So along the lines of what City Manager Woodhouse said, in the very beginning, the PD was receiving an enormous amount of questions. Those have seemed to have gone away. Most of the questions that we get as this has progressed in recent months is in regards to enforcement, what businesses can or cannot be doing, and just general questions like that. But all the other questions have gone away. We're not receiving any questions about vaccinations or anything of that nature.
Okay.
Thoughts? Anyone?
Perhaps we should get public comment before
Yeah.
the operation on the council.
Yeah, I was just, thank you very much. I was just checking, and then I realized, well, we never really asked for public comment. So maybe that's why people haven't raised their hands. So if anyone would like to make a comment on this item, if you could please raise your hand, or remind me, City Clerk Coffee, dial
It's
star 9.
* 9 to, I don't see any call-in users at the moment. So it's just the raise hand button if you'd like to comment on item number 9 at this time.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any raised hands at the moment. It looks like we don't have any wishing to comment at this time.
Okay. All right, back to council then. One thought that I had about this is, because the information is shifting all the time and changing and being updated all the time, it might make sense to appoint a subcommittee of council members, that would be 2 council members, to work on it, rather than waiting until the next meeting to bring something, to be able to have another discussion about it or to do any work on it. So I want to hear what people think about that too.
I think the more information out there, the better. But I think it is such a fluid situation that we really, as the city manager said, we really don't know if the information we're giving out tonight is even accurate, because they might have changed it this afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my only concern. But I do think it would be good to do it. But I also think it might be better, instead of having just a general town hall, to maybe have focused. So like there's one on businesses, what is available, what we can do, this is how you do outdoor dining, etc. Because a lot of people, we don't care about that, but the businesses do. But then maybe over 65, people, because I'm also trying to think of marketing, and then maybe we encourage the school districts, or we sponsor one for the school districts to have parents come and do their Zoom meeting. Okay. Because
Yeah.
that's kind of like my thought. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
If 2 people want to be on a subcommittee, I'm all for another subcommittee.
Okay. Councilmember Big Stick?
If it might make sense in lieu of such a thing, if maybe we were to invite people for special presentations before city council meetings, because we often have that space where there's special presentations. So if maybe it rolled out more as a series of special presentations, that might lend itself to not having to worry as much about staff time on the one hand, and on the other hand, we can get guests who can update us more frequently. And then after that, a thought that keeps occurring to me is that, until we have a change of administration, we might not have as clear an understanding of how the vaccines at the topmost level are going to get rolled out. I would imagine during the change of any administration, there's logistic changes that need to be made, and this one being no exception. I'd be interested to see if there's more consistency in information once there's a more consistency in forum to leadership.
I really like the idea of special presentations. Thank you so much for that. One of the thoughts that I had, and the reason why I'm bringing this up in the first place, is that people don't understand all the resources that are available to them. And so maybe that's why they're not asking questions, because they don't even know the resources are there. And so like, you know, mental health resources or anything that has to do with the resource center, things like that. So, but we can have those as special presentations. I appreciate that idea.
Mm-hmm.
You want to say something?
We don't get that many people that attend our meetings. I'd like to see it larger, but maybe if we announce, like we make a lot of announcements on Nextdoor, Facebook, all over, and people still will say, I didn't know anything about that. So I don't know how we could draw more people unless we just announce that at the beginning of the meeting on February 9th, I just made up a date, we are going to discuss the vaccines. On the beginning of the meeting on this date, we're going to discuss this. And I do not want staff to have to work very hard on this, but I can see just arranging people to speak. We can do that.
Yes.
Well, that's why I was kind of thinking if you have meetings of specific focused groups, that means you have people that have a common interest in, for marketing purposes, you know, to our business licenses people, to the senior, you know, the senior activities have all those contact information to send stuff out. The schools have their, you know what I mean? So you could, if you have a focused meeting on specific topics, you can focus the subject matter to that clientele.
I am going to push one more thing. The whole idea of having a town hall is to bring leaders together so that they're visible all at once. So that you have all these folks sitting up there sharing the information and then sharing information about, and you know, here's where you can find the updates. And so that was the whole reason behind it, my whole reasoning behind it.
So are you saying in that way, then trying to gang it up into one or a couple of meetings is more efficient than parsing it out?
Yeah, I was thinking in regards to what Councilmember O'Neill was saying, in my perspective, it's nice to have all the leaders together. There's something about that visibility that is good for our community. But again, it's just an idea, and I really appreciate engaging in the conversation. So
yeah. I was wondering, City Manager Woodhouse, if you're engaging with other city managers, do you have any sense of if people are doing coronavirus updates as a regular standing agenda item? Is that something, because we're doing it through our council communications and staff communications, but is it something we should put a placeholder on our agendas and have a focused time around that? Or is that even possible to do?
It's certainly possible. As to what other cities do, I could ask the city managers group about how they're handling it. It's probably all over the board, I would guess. You know, a lot of regular updates just ad hoc in announcements because information flies so quickly. That would be probably the dominant strategy. I don't know if any cities have held, you know, kind of big consolidated town halls to address many aspects of it at once. I do know that one city that I heard through the city attorney, you know, did a pretty thorough, comprehensive staff report update about sort of all things COVID, much like we did when we developed the restoration of operations plan and presented that to council, and it summarized everything the city has been doing and everything that's available and such. So, but that's more of like every, every few months or something, probably strategy. I see City Attorney Kenyon is on. She might be able to
Well,
elaborate.
I can just add a little bit more to that. And I have seen this issue handled really two ways. One way is some cities have had regular COVID agenda items on their regular agendas where every once a month they will just update resources so that it's not a long agenda item, but it's just sort of updating information on a regular basis. I've also seen other cities do what City Manager Woodhouse was just referring to, and that is, once every 6 months, they will have a regular agenda item that is a very long agenda item that talks about all of the resources in one place that are available at that particular time in COVID, where people can get resources and what's available to them. So those are the two models that I've seen used mostly, and either one works. It just depends on what you feel is best for your community. But I have not seen a special town hall meeting scheduled, on an off regular agenda time to deal with these things. So
It would definitely have to be based on the information that you had on that day, because it is not the same from day to day. And I don't think people can expect you to say, oh, well, this is the information for the next month, because it's not going to be.
Well, and I think the difference between information as in data or whatever, and then resources, right? So very different things. So maybe if we had information updates and then we can invite people to present about resources, that would be the combo that I'm looking for.
Right. So you're saying information updates on scheduled agendas? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, like regular COVID updates. And I can just invite folks to come and give special presentations.
Well, that seems like a reasonable approach. We're getting, City Manager, do you have weekly updates with the county? Do the city managers have weekly updates with county manager?
No, our countywide city managers meeting is every 2 weeks. And honestly, at those meetings, we don't cover a lot of information or details about COVID status. We use that time maybe to check in on a hot topic, but we talk about a lot of other normal, important, critical business.
Right, because life does go on. Right. No, I guess what I was thinking is that they were mirroring what they're doing, what County Manager Callaghan's doing with the elected call every 2 weeks now.
Yeah, early on, those briefings to the city managers got folded into the briefings with elected officials. So we participate in that same meeting.
I see.
And that's kind of a good, for those that have participated in those briefings, they're fairly chaotic and in a sense of, a lot of information hot off the press and a lot of questions and a lot of, maybe answers or maybe not in those briefings.
Yeah, and not everyone attends them. And I feel like there's a lot of rich information that comes out that maybe then needs to be distilled down to this piece of this presentation and that piece of that presentation as a public update. That's at least what I had in mind when we were first talking about the concept of a town hall. Because there's information on different parts. Like, for example, vaccine is obviously a hot topic for me and something, it's emergent, but testing still goes on. So a couple of weeks ago, testing was the hot topic. Like, where can you get a test and when can they come to Pacifica, and all of that. So I think, at least for me, one of the things I'm looking for is a framework that gives us some place to disseminate the information as a vehicle. And I think the other piece that I'm sensitive to, and I want to hear other council members' thoughts on, we hear a lot from former council members sometimes reminding us that not everyone in the community is using computers or is comfortable with, go to this website, click through, / COVID.19. It's that kind of thing. And so in terms of the subcommittee, I would want to take some time to work with our folks in PB&R that work with the senior population and figure out if they're already doing a dissemination of information that I'm not aware of. It may be happening and I'm just not aware of it. So I'm feeling this need we've got to get the information out, and it's already getting out. And I'm not aware that that's happening. That is a possibility. So what do you think, Council, Mayor Pro Tem Beer, where do you want to go next with this?
Well, I think if we had a subgroup that could meet and just discuss like what kind of updates we want to hear on a regular basis, maybe that would be helpful. So it's not chaotic. So like there's structure to it. Does that make sense, Kevin?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Like if we're gonna have regular COVID updates as an agenda item, and it would be good to have like structure to it. So it's like you were saying, the other means are kind of chaotic with lots of questions and things, but maybe if we had structure, then it wouldn't feel that way. I don't know. I feel like we're putting work onto you though. So.
Well, again, I mean, anything that the council decides on this, we'll just have to see how much work it is and take it in stride with everything else we're working on. If we have a regular council item or once a month, let's say, certainly preparing that staff report with all the information resources will take some staff time to do, and research to write those and make sure they're accurate at the time of the agenda release, which is 5 days in advance of the meeting. I think that's a feasible vehicle.
But if I could just jump in here, Madam Mayor, one thing that I'm hearing is that there is a desire, I think, to provide more information, but I haven't heard a consensus on what that looks like. And so maybe the mayor and vice mayor's suggestion to appoint an ad hoc subcommittee to work with the city manager to come up with that vehicle and then report back to the council.
That was what I was thinking.
Whatever form, that might be the best way to move forward with this item.
Great.
What do you think, Mayor Pro Tem?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. So who would like to be on the subcommittee? I have a feeling Mayor Pro Tem would like to be. And I will be very excellent. Thank you very much, Council Member Vaterlos, especially in light of your role on the COVID recovery. I think you have a lot of access to information that could be funneled in.
Nice.
So then could you please put this on the agenda for the 25th? Is that the date?
Yes, 25th.
Thank you.
And we'll schedule a ad hoc subcommittee meeting with Councilmember Vaterlos, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to actually have a formal appointment of the ad hoc. So we need a motion and a second to appoint Vice Mayor Beer and Councilmember Vaterlos to an ad hoc subcommittee to work with the city council, to work with the city manager on figuring out what kind of COVID related informational meetings are appropriate.
So moved.
Second.
So with the motion by O'Neill and the second by Butterlos to form and appoint the ad hoc subcommittee and appoint Mayor Pro Tem Beer and Councilmember Butterlos. I'll do the roll call vote. Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Butterlos.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And that passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody, for being willing to talk about that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, the city council will be recessing to closed session. We have 2 items for discussion. The first item is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2E1, one case. And the second item, item B, is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1 YB, a minor, by and through her guardian ad litem Natalia Bicon versus State of California et al., United States District Court, Northern District of California, case number 320-CV02624-SK. And I don't know what TSH is, but that's on there too. Those are 2 closed session items. I need to know if there's anyone from the public that would want to comment on that.
We have a break as well before we dive in.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
I would
So-
also like to suggest that we mention who we're adjourning in honor of now, because I doubt anybody's going to stick around for the end when we report out.
Okay, so we'll move that item up. Can we do that, City Clerk Coffee?
Yeah, we can do the commentary on the
Honorees.
persons that we're honoring for adjournment at this time.
Sure. So City Attorney, we should ask for a public comment on the closed session items, and then we'll be able to give our report or our reference about our honor in memory of before we go to closed session.
Correct.
Okay, and I'm gonna propose, what time is it now? 9:13. I think, can we take like a 7-minute break? Is that sufficient after we finish, when we go to closed session? So whatever time that is, we'll announce it at that moment. Okay, very good. So is there public comment?
Any members of the public wishing to comment on either of the closed session items, please raise your hand at this time. Mayor Beckmeyer, I'm seeing none.
All right, then I will go ahead with, we are.
As a reminder before acknowledging the in memory of adjournments, council members will recess to close session and then return to the public portion of the meeting for the closed session report to the public.
Okay, thank you. So tonight we will be making comments in memory of former City of Pacifica employee Patricia Pat Phelan from Parks, Beaches and Recreation Department, Child Care Services. And I think Director Perez may be here to make some comments. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, hi.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Thank you. Pat Fallon passed away over the break on December 21st, 2020. She was a lead teacher for us, the City of Pacifica Parks, Beach and Recreation Department, Child Care Services from June of 1989 until her retirement in August of 2016. And I had the pleasure of working directly with Pat for about 7 years, but also worked for the department the whole time she was here. Back in the 90s at the Cabrillo Child Care site. And she was just so much fun to work with. with the staff and the children. And I was able to care for her now adult children. And in turn, she was able to care for my adult children, who both adored her and really enjoyed her a lot. We had some nice times talking about her recently. She was big-hearted, kind, and caring person who always put the needs of others ahead of her own. And she made a huge impact on the lives of so many children in our community. She was so happy when a lot of the children that she did care for at the child care centers grew up and had children of their own who then became students of Pat's. She was loved by many and will be dearly missed by her friends, family, and all the coworkers. And I know there's a lot of people right now that work for us that did work with Pat, and a lot of us attended a virtual memorial last week, and just nice to hear some really nice things. And she very much touched a lot of lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill, did you want to say anything about
Pilar.
Morganti or
Pilar Schneider.
Pilar Schneider.
Do you want me to do Marvin or Pilar? Both? No,
Both,
okay.
either, whatever.
Okay, well, Pilar Schneider, I served on the school board with her, and she was, a survivor of the Japanese occupation of the Philippines during World War II. She also survived 25 or 30 years of teaching here in Pacifica School District, as well as I think at least 8 years on the Pacifica School Board. She cared very much for education, and through her intervention and help, she worked to have her son Rob Schneider fully fund the Pacifica School District music program for middle school kids. And he did that actually for every school, I believe it was, and the middle school. And he did that for several years. And one of my things that I remember when I first got elected to the school board was I guess when you get to that level, you have to have different funding sources and stuff like that. And so I went to this fundraiser for the Rob Schneider Foundation, and at the fundraiser, I met Adam Sandler, Bo Derek, who when I was a kid was the perfect 10. And so there was Bo Derek, Rob Schneider, and Adam Sandler, and Willie Mays. And I was able to get the autograph of all four of them on the program. And it was like, people will always wonder, like, where were these four people together? But Pilar Schneider was very kind to my family because she saw I had little kids when I started the school board and stuff. And she will be missed. She was a great believer in public education and in Pacifica. So sorry to extend my sympathies, I think, as we all do, to her family.
She was a really strong woman, like a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, she was. Yeah, her son was on the city council at one point. Yeah, and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I only knew her at the very later part of the items you were mentioning with regard to the Rob Schneider Music Foundation and doing fundraising with that. I actually got involved with the first fundraiser before my children were in school. But then we benefited, of course, from there being a music program in the middle schools, and that, of course, fed into the high school, having a band that could play. So always very grateful to her for that.
Their family made an impact on thousands of kids in Pacifica.
Indeed, lasting impact. Yeah. And then another lasting impact, of course, to our community is Marv Morganti. Marv and I served together and were members together in the Lions Club. He was a longtime member of the Historical Society. He was an associate superintendent of the school district, I think, Mike.
Yes, the Pacifica School District, yeah.
Just this kindest, sweetest, really dry sense of humor, always friendly and happy, interesting person. I was really surprised, and I was with Councilmember Big Stick when I found out that he had passed at Safeway, where you hear a lot of things. And I don't know, I just kind of thought, he would be with us forever. And of course, that's not realistic. So
Right.
I'm
I never knew that he actually was there when Japan surrendered in World War II on the, in Tokyo Bay. And I seem to remember was in the neighborhood for Pearl Harbor or whatever. But one of my memories of him is we were both ghosts up at the castle, at Sam's Castle, and I was McCloskey, the owner of the castle, and he was Reverend Harkins, who is what the official name of the pier is, the Reverend Herschel Harkins, pastor of Little Brown Church. But he was over 90. Both Pilar and him were over 90 years old. So
he was 96.
yeah, and sharp as a tack.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he used to send me jokes. It was funny.
Yes. He was, and always really, really generous with praise. And that's something I really appreciated from somebody who really had been here for a long time and was just really willing to reach out and give you an atta girl or an atta boy, when you needed it. And
he'd take you to the woodshed if he disagreed with you, something you voted on, though.
Well, it goes two sides of the same coin, right?
Oh yeah, he'd take you to the woodshed, but he was a very, very nice guy and a gentleman.
Indeed. And then I, want to also just mention Haron Wesley, and he was the owner of Champus Pies. And he did pass away on December 20th after a surfing accident. There is a GoFundMe for his family and a very nice, beautiful story and a lot of detail about him. I would recommend people take a look. He was the kindest person and just a friendly person. So he will be missed. Yes, Councilmember Big Stick.
This has occurred. No, he was absolutely one of the sweetest human beings I have ever met in my life. I remember distinctly the first time I met him down at the Pacifica Farmers Market. He handed me that little taste of his sweet potato pie and told me it was the truth. And it surely was. And he became a tradition in my house thereafter. My Thanksgivings, he makes absolutely the best pumpkin pie outside of my family I've ever tasted. And I'd even debate it in my own family, but I'm not going to go there right now. But every Thanksgiving, I had one of his pumpkin pies. Every Christmas, I had one of his chocolate cream pies. The last Thanksgiving, I did not think I was going to be having Thanksgiving as I did here. And so I hadn't ordered his pie ahead of time. And the night before, I was hustling to get my Thanksgiving meal together. And I called him up and said, is there any chance in tarnation you actually have an extra pie? He said, well, you call me back, I'll check in. And, after a couple times calling, sure enough, he called me back that night and said, I have one for you. I said, can I come get it right now? He said, yes. So that's my very last recollection, is going to get that pie and having another one of those amazing exchanges that happens so infrequently with people who seem to be made of pure light. And I'm just grateful that I had that last moment with him, and will sorely be missing him during my holidays.
Well,
I'd
thanks
like to
everyone.
Condolences to all of the families.
Yes.
Involved.
And
great.
So, as we are recessing to closed session, it's 9:24. Shall we say, let's shoot for 9:30?
Yeah.
Can we do that? All right. Thank you.
All right, we just went. I'm moving and I'm not on TV, but Tiger's moving. So, there I just moved. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
We're on TV.
It looks like we're ready to resume the public
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay, we're returning from closed session. City Attorney, is there any reportable action?
No reportable action?
Thank you. Then this meeting is adjourned at 11:03 p.m.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Good
everybody.
night. Night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Take care. Bye.